What's up, gamers? Aaron Shack here, and we are live with Acting Relic for Shackcast episode number 64. Very excited to be here today because we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things on the show today. We're going to talk about Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree now that I've gotten through the DLC. And we're also going to talk about Warhammer 40k, Space Marine 2, probably some talk about Space Marine 1 because we also did that on the channel recently. But having got through the campaign and a lot of the operations missions and digging into all the different chapters and the lore and, just interesting things that have happened throughout the story, we have a special guest, Acting Relic, here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then let's get into it.
Sure. Hello, everyone. If you've seen a lot of Aaron's content of recently, I'm the random talking voice in the background spouting random 40k lore or being the man just face tanking the boss in any Elden Ring video. I have been making videos on and off for I think we're at 10 years or soon to be 10 years at some point here. I primarily focus on From Software games as well as other strategy games and action games and a lot of Warhammer games going forwards because I fell down the absolute rabbit hole that is the universe basically during the pandemic and have been trapped there ever since.
That's pretty awesome. Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into Shadow of the Erdtree. Because I think one of the things that was interesting about playing through this DLC was this one had there was a lot of expectation around it because Elden Ring is the best version of their Souls games.
Absolutely.
From Software is notorious for that the DLC is often the best parts of each of the Souls games. Say, Dark Souls 1, Artorias of the Abyss is a very good expansion to the game and adds some of the best bosses of that series. I would argue that Dark Souls 2 is almost unplayable without its DLCs because they are some of the best area designs of that entire game. Dark 3 is weird where the first DLC is okay, but then you have Ring City, which is like, okay, this is what it feels like the true ending to Dark Souls 3 is playing Ring City. Old Hunters is a really good expansion for Bloodborne because it adds, once again, some really good bosses, some really good additional content for that game. So, Shadow of the Erdtree had a lot of things stacked against it. And then they threw that price tag out of $50. It was like, okay.
Seems like a big investment.
The game's $70, so how much are we getting?
Yeah.
And Miyazaki was saying, oh, it's the size of Limgrave and all this stuff. And then we got to it, and it's like, you fucking lied to us. This is a whole nother game. This isn't a DLC. This feels like an expansion. This feels like a Burning Crusade to WoW Classic. Like it's a whole additional game. I was blown away at how much additional stuff was added with the DLC, and I was trying to tabulate how many hours I had sunk back into the game with the release of the DLC. I know from my streams alone, I have 20 hours. And then I have however many hours I have playing with you for your streams. And then all the time I spent off stream just either farming or just working on other stuff. So I think it is not like out of scope to say that I sunk another 60 to 70 hours into the game for the DLC.
I think that's fair to say, because I mean, easily with my Confessor and Astrologer, Like I probably sunk in another, 50 or 60 per character, because I mean it takes that long to get through that campaign, and you want to do all the same exploration and boss fights, and kind of try to get the same or a slightly different ending, try not to make all the same mistakes, because there's some deep things like the library part that's very missable, right?
I I would argue I was pulling up my streams today to go and check. When I first played it, I completely missed doing the depths and the fissure because I didn't understand how the mechanic worked. Because I got to the depths early and it had the gold door and it said guarded by the rune of Mikola. And I was like, oh, okay, I have to kill Mikola and then I can come back here and get it. Not understanding that what that actually means is that you have to wait till Mikola's rune is broken, which is when you basically get in front of Shadowkeep, then you can come back. So I missed going down there when Saint Trina was alive to go talk to her. I showed up, she was dead because I had already killed Radon.
Oh.
So I completely missed all of that. I got to watch you experience going through that quest with Trina and Tholier on your playthroughs.
Yeah, because that whole area was really well hidden.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't really think to go in a giant hole like that in the middle of nowhere. Unless there's a big obvious, like, meteor that fell into the world, Like...
And what I thought it was going to be was that, we're hearkening back to Artorias of the Abyss, where we're putting in this one additional, Mikola's holding back some sort of character of pure shadow and pure darkness. Once we defeat them, we can go fight that character. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's a completely side thing about how, like, Trina's telling you, hey, you have to understand, you have been lied to this whole time. You've been believing this lie that Mikola is going to be the new god that will bring salvation and love to this world, but you've all been feeding off this lie for so long. But there is no, like, you see all of our, and that's another thing, you really have to pay attention to interacting with all the NPC characters that are in the DLC, like talking to them at every various points, picking sort of who you're going to side with and benefit there within. I remember explaining that to you. It was like, I want to do this in such a way where I go, it is important to talk to them, not and hold back, hey, at the end of things here, this decides how many people you fight.
Oof. Yeah, because you don't want to spoil that. Because, I mean, it's
such a cool thing where it's like, okay, how many... Because you walk into that arena, it's like, oh, okay, I have to fight Lades against me. And you touch that sign, it's like, Needle Knight Lade and her allies. Like, how many people am I fighting? It's like, well, it depends. Who did you talk to? Who did you side with?
Yeah. Which means, I mean, there is going to be a little bit of replayability there, because I think...
100%.
Yeah, you can, there were some people... Well, I think on one character, we had actually everybody came through, right?
Yes, because I think comparatively, we had seen the fight where we see... Usually, if you're going through the usual progression, you see Redmane Freya... And then, what's our goodest boy's name?
Was it Moore? Moore was next, yeah.
Moore comes out, and then Dane comes out, and then Lade's usually the end. Depending on how you do that, things can be different. Say, for example, when I did it, I didn't get Freya because I completely missed Freya. I never saw her in my first playthrough because I didn't go to that one grace that's in the middle of the starting zone. I was just like, oh, there's a fire giant over there. I just don't want to be here right now. I'm running away.
Yeah, just go around. No.
So I missed her, and instead of her, I had to fight Hornset.
Ooh.
And fighting Hornset there is not fun.
Yeah.
Because that first character that comes out, whether it's Hornset or Redmane Freya, you want to DPS them down really fast so that when other people start appearing, you aren't fighting multiple people at once, because that's where the fight can really turn in their favor, is when they have more people on the field than you do.
And I've never done that fight solo, but I imagine it's not.
Here's the thing, neither did I, because I tried to do it solo, and it's just like, okay, I'm going to do it solo. Okay, I'm going to do it with spirit summons.
Oh, no.
Okay, I need summon help to
You're
do
like,
this.
wait,
Fuck
I
this.
need... So funny. Oh my god.
Because of that fight, I learned about Giant Hunt on greatswords, because I summoned in someone who had it, and I watched them juggle. I think it was. It might have been Hornset. They juggled Hornset in the corner, where it's just like every single time they stood up, it's just like pop, just. And that's where, if you've seen Aaron's videos, when I say no fun allowed, I mean I'm juggling you in the corner.
That's so accurate.
Yeah. So, and it's one of those things where it's interesting that, with the expansion, we have more or less our core story of following our various NPCs and carving our way through the lands of Shadow. We go to the first castle, we get through that. We go to Shadowkeep, we fight our way up Shadowkeep, and eventually get to Mesmer, which, again, many people have said, really surprising that Mesmer's basically the middle game boss.
That's very true.
He was the box art character for this DLC. It's like, oh, he's got to be like near the end. It's like, no. He's very much here to be like, hey, here's what's going on, and here is basically hey, if you can get past this, you have a solid shot at getting past more stuff. But he's not the definitive. Then you carve your way through all that. The thing that's interesting is that that's a very core centerpiece you could do, but then there are multiple different side zones. We talked about St. Trina's side zone with the fissure.
Right.
I would say the standout side zone that I almost like more than the core progression main story of the DLC is Dragon Mountain. Like, doing the climb up the mountain, and like you get through the first initial dungeon, you kill the dragon warrior. It's like, okay, what do we got next? Okay, we got this one dragon in a thing before, but we've seen kind of that, and the path splits in two. It's like, okay, left is further up the mountain, right is to the thing. Okay, what's the deal with the right side? So you wander across, and then you come over that hill, and you see this giant dragon dead. And it's like, okay, what is going on?
Yeah.
You ride up, you meet the priestess, and she explains to you, and she tells you about Baal. And she gives you this impression of what Baal is like, and then she utters the words, my lord Placidusax fought Baal, and they fought to a standstill, and Baal left. And it's like, what the fuck are we up against? That, because previously, most of us had played parts of Elden Ring to be able to go and fight Placidusax, and Placidusax is a tough fight for where it is. And you're telling me that this thing that's up on this mountain fought Placidusax, and it was a draw, and he left.
Wounded. Both wounded. Both dragons are wounded greatly. We're fighting them in diminished state, you know?
From Software does this all the time where they go, by the way, the boss that you're fighting isn't even at full strength. You are fighting the weakened, wounded version of it.
Love it.
It's just like how when you see Artorias for the first time, it's like, fuck, he's so hard. And you finally defeat him, and then somebody goes, by the way, Artorias is left-handed. His left arm is broken. What do you think original Artorias was like? It's like, fuck.
Yeah, be grateful you're not fighting him.
Be grateful you're fighting the weakened version, I say with quotations. So you carve your way up the mountain. And of course, before this whole adventure starts and midway through the mountain, you meet, arguably, I really have to think about who I like the most of the NPCs, but Egon's really up there.
I think so. Yeah.
You meet him first initially and you go, oh, some kind of weird guy who's screaming about something in the middle of the thing. You carve your way up the mountain, you meet him again, and he's like, I respect you. I like the way that you fight. Take me with you. Let me help you beat this dragon that I could not beat. Help me restore my honor, basically. And you get all the way to the top, and I think you said it when you were streaming it, Aaron, just the lighting of that top section where the lightning is cascading down. There are dead dragons everywhere, and you go, what am I going to find?
Yep.
You come into that first arena, you walk forwards, and he just comes crashing down in front of you, and you look at this hulking monstrosity of dragon, and you go, oh no, I have to fight that. And usually the first thing that happens in that fight is he does the grab attack and insta kills you.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I could vouch for that.
Like, it was a real statement of like, hey, respect me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and then just the experience of going in there, pulling in Egon, and I think Bale especially, and some of the later fights really are designed for co-op. They are designed with you bringing in co-op friends to do stuff with, because you can do it alone or you can do it by yourself with a spirit summon, but you don't get that experience of like all working together and being able to like talk to each other and yell out call outs of, oh, okay, he's doing laser, he's doing this move or this move. Like Bale feels like a raid boss. He doesn't feel like an average boss. He feels like something that you're supposed to bring a team and strategize.
Yeah, and I mean, you miss out on a huge chunk of Egon's story if you don't really bring him in and let him do his dialogue, you know?
100%.
And I think the parallel that you bring up with Moby Dick, that we kind of, can you tap into that a little bit to some of our viewers?
Like, we see Egon as a man broken and shattered. Like, his body is physically broken, his spirit is physically broken, his mind is even broken as well. And he's been questing after this mythical beast that has taken everything from him. And what does he use to attempt to bring down this beast? He throws fucking harpoons at it. And when you finish all the things, the thing that you get available to purchase in the shop from using his bell bearing is his harpoons. It's just like, hey, let's take one of the most recognized literary characters, remix it into a fantasy setting. And it's one of those things where you can like ignore it and not notice it and still just enjoy Egon for what he is. And then once you understand it, you go, that's really cool. Like, that's a thing where it doesn't feel shoehorned in. It feels natural.
Very true. Yeah, yeah. It doesn't feel like, oh, you need to understand that this is a Moby Dick reference, guys. Like I'm such
Yeah,
a literary major right now.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
man who is like devoted his entire existence to
Mm-hmm.
hunting a great beast.
Yeah.
Throws harpoons at it. Oh, okay, it's a Moby Dick reference.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'd say the other section that is a side section that is interesting, where the boss itself is not bad, but it's the area that sets the tone.
Oof.
And it's the woods, the madness swamp. Because nothing is better than, like, I did it with you, I did it with Jay, where it's like, okay, oh, your horse is available. You should use your horse for this zone. And just, I sit back and I, like put my hands in a steeple and I go, oh, I can't wait to see it happen. And you ride forward and it just goes, bam, no horse.
That was a jump scare for me,
and
man.
you push the button and it goes, the spectral steed is scared.
Ooh.
Torrent has seen like dragons, monstrosities, Kaled. You can use him to fight a literal god with Elden Beast.
Yep.
But these woods scare this horse.
That sets it up pretty well, yeah.
Oh, and then you're just going through and you find dev messages that say like, hey, don't let it see you. And you just start getting paranoid about like, what am I looking at? And you're moving along, you see the animals with these big orange eyes. It's like, okay, I've seen that before. That's madness. I know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving through, you find the guy with the madness fist, and you defeat him. He's not that bad. Then you come around that corner, and you see that big orange ball slowly moving in the shadows, and you go, what is that? And like, you might, and it's kind of interesting depending on how you play things, where some people initially go, oh, enemy, I want to go fight it, or I want to go try and fight it. Some people find the dev message that says stay out of sight. So it's like, oh, okay, there's bushes here. I can use them to hide in. And you remember that this game has a crouch button that you hardly ever use.
Yeah, it's not like Sekiro where stealth is, you know,
a cool part of the game.
Yeah, Elden Ring doesn't really use it that way.
And like, say with my experience, it's like, okay, I bet there's a thing where, say, they are, if you try and run at them, you'll just die. But maybe when they turn around, I can run up and backstab them.
What I thought.
I ran up, did that, and it's like, nope, they're actually invulnerable to damage. It's like, okay, fuck, this has now become a different game. This is now a stealth game, not an action game.
Yep. God.
Did you know you can actually kill them?
No, but let me talk about another thing, is because you go from patch of tall grass to patch of tall grass, but then you see that plant, the reeds, yeah. You got to bring that up. Like, that's so, I was like, oh, this looks like a sign of safety, and then it like rings like a little bell when you go in there.
When you touch it.
Oh my God! And the reeds, they snitch on you,
cool
man.
Thing.
Like,
and you realize that these things are sound reactive, where if they hear you make noise, they will go near it. What's even better is partway through that path of grass and all that, not only do they have like the bell plants, they also just put madness rats in there just to be like, oh, they're not gonna do a lot of damage, but they are very good at pushing you. And often pushing you out of the grass.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Oh.
Push you into combat to make some noise, and there you go. Then you're screwed.
Good.
So well done. And it's hard to be like too mad at it. Like, you can't really be like super mad at Miyazaki for throwing in, you know, his poison swamps and annoying, spooky, scary forest here with unkillable or seemingly unkillable monster. Which, yeah, as you said, like I never really picked up on how do we kill these things, if even possible.
I didn't know about it, and there's not really a ton of like things on the ground that would be able to tell you. I know about it because I saw it on Twitter of somebody doing it. And I think now people have put messages down of try this. What you can do is the monsters have this little wand in their hand, and that's what they use to cast the sort of grab, and like it focuses you down, and then they can do the grab attack. As they are doing the cast animation, if you parry with a parry shield,
no way,
you can you stop the attack from happening, and the black shadow that encases their lower body dissipates, and they gain a health bar, and you can kill them.
What? So there's a skill gap there where it's like, hey, if you're actually really good at this, which parrying's tough. The
timing on the parrying is weird for them.
Oh, that's even worse.
Where it's interesting, where like the first couple times I did this, it's like, is this actually possible? Do I need a particular shield? Do I need a particular, because there are multiple different parry skills, because there's standard issue parrying, there's carrying retaliation parrying, and then there's one that is a holy golden order parry. I believe carrying retaliation often works the best for the parry against them, but the timing is still kind of weird depending on how you go. So yeah, it's quite something. Well, I do say that much of the swamp kind of outshines anything else that's in that zone. I will say, finally getting to the manse, and you go through the mansion and do all these different things, you hit all these invisible walls that the manse has a lot of invisible walls, so much so that when I stream that segment, it's like, I'm kind of at a dead end here. I can't figure out where to go. And then I return to the next room. It's like, so I looked it up. This wall isn't real.
Yeah, they did a lot of that. And even on replays, I forgot about some of those walls because you were the one rolling through them as you led me.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. And then the second time when I was playing solo, I was like, where do I freaking go? I know there's a lever in this room. I know I have to get up there. I was so just kept rolling into walls and looking for messages, and sometimes I play without the messages. So I mean that's sometimes I'm logged out.
Experience. So you get through all that, you finish that off, and you come to the audience chamber. And you go in, and it's like, okay, there's a guy on the ground who's gonna try and run and try and grab you. Oh, he doesn't seem so bad. We'll take him out. And then that cutscene plays. And I thought the fire giant cutscene was the worst one, where you see his legs snap.
Yep. That's pretty bad.
I recently saw it again playing on your warrior character.
Yep.
Fire giant cutscene has nothing on this one, where
That's
it's just
very
like,
true. It hurts you.
I really do believe that there's another version of that cutscene where they kept going further with it. But there was somebody in the team where it's just like, we cannot put this out if you do this. You have to cut here and here to make this tolerable.
ESRB and all the other ratings boards are gonna be like,
what are you?
He wants to pull a what out his?
You want him to pull his head off of his body. Oh my god. And then the fight is actually it's one of those fights where mechanically it's not that difficult, your most difficult mechanic is managing the madness meter, but the spectacle of the fight is really something. And if you have achieved the Chaos Lord ending, that fight gets really changed around of what it means.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. So spoilers on Elden Ring's original endings here. But we have 3 endings, right? We got the Elden Lord, we've got the ending where you marry Rania. I forget what they call it, but
Sea of Stars, I want to say.
yeah. And then we have the Lord of what's it called? Lord of
Frenzied Flame.
Frenzied Flame, yeah. And so that ending, what it does, and I have a short coming out with that if it's not already out. It basically looks like we become like Midra is, with the madness flame for a head, and it's almost like we bring about the end of the world, like it's total madness. Like if Elden Ring wasn't already bad enough of a world to exist in, with all the death and the chaos and the, all these different themes that are happening. So if let's just say if the mainline canon of Elden Ring is that we get the madness ending and our character becomes the Lord of Frenzy Flame. So what does that imply that Midra is if he is basically existing in the land of shadow, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of like the upside down from Stranger Things to Elden Ring's I forget what you would call like the main Elden Ring world, like in that
Lands Between.
Lands Between, right. And that would would that kind of imply to you that that's almost like a purgatory?
That is exactly what it is.
Okay.
And part of the reason that it was designed like that is that it was designed as a prison to keep A, Mikola in check, and B, Mesmer. Like, Marika hated Mesmer so much that she's like, fucking go over there. Like, go into this shadow realm. I'm not going to admit that you're one of mine. Stay over here. So, yes, absolutely. It is pointing to that Midra is basically the Lord of Frenzied Flame of what would be the Shadowlands.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Pretty crazy.
That's quite something.
So, for those that maybe don't understand, so we kind of know that in general, I mean, maybe the canon ending might be the Elden Lord ending. Would that be kind of?
Yeah, I think that
would be like your traditional ending to the main game, is that you become the Elden Lord. What does that mean to someone that's played through the game and they're like really confused? They're like, okay, well, I tried to keep up with the conversations, but like, what does it mean now that I'm the Elden Lord? What does that do for me? What does that mean for the world? And then where does that go when we enter the DLC? What does that mean?
That's a good question. Because with other Souls games, it was really kind of easy where, say, with a lot of the other Souls games, you were cycling sort of, say, with Dark Souls 1, you have the option to kindle the first flame or step away from it and bring on an Age of Darkness. With kindling the first flame, you just continue the world as it is and you become the new kindler of the fire. With rejecting the shadow, you basically snuff out the flame and let darkness take hold and control all. So I think what we are kind of seeing is that the Elden Ring, Elden Lord ending is basically you would become Elden Lord and take on the mantle that America and goodness, what is the name? I'm forgetting the name of the man with the red hair and the hammer, who is also just America.
Oh, Radigan? Radigan?
Radigan.
Yeah.
You're taking on their mantle and basically reforging, taking all the different shards of the Elden Ring and sort of mashing it back together to make a new golden age. Whereas with, say, Ronnie's ending, you're dispelling the old orders of the new and welcoming a new age of night and stars. Madness ending is basically fuck all this, fuck the world, let it all burn. May chaos take the world, as Shabiri says.
Yikes. That's insane.
So, yeah. It's just a whole thing.
And then let's say you get any of those endings, what does the beginning of the DLC mean to the player as they're getting started? Like, because you got to beat Mog, right? And then you see a certain scene, and then you're pulled in to a new world, and you're like, what? Why? You know?
Yeah. I think what we are kind of seeing, and what I have never done, I have to do in a subsequent playthrough, is what happens if you do DLC before you go get an ending?
Oh.
Is there a new option?
Interesting.
Because I do wonder about that. I kind of see the DLC very much as sort of a side story of, like you said, an upside down world where things are different, where Mikola is on the cusp of becoming a new god, and we are preventing that from happening. So it's almost as if Mikola has their own ending for the world that they have planned out, and we are going, no, not in my game. I'm the main character. You're not.
I'm the Elden Lord. Get out of my game. I'm not gonna let you do this.
One way of looking at things. Speaking of which, let's talk about the fucking ending boss fight of this DLC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I like a lot of the bosses in this game, and I kind of do really like that final boss. Yeah. Holy shit, it's overtuned.
It is, yeah.
It's so fucking hard.
I watched people try to solo it, and I saw a lot of clips on Twitter, and I was like, this does not look fun. Like, and the only people that were winning were the people that were using the little parry shield, and they were like, I got the timing perfectly. I parry every single attack, and I stagger him, and then I do massive damage, with my retaliation attack. And I make it look easy. I beat him in like a minute, all by my little self. And I'm like, even with the three of us, fighting at, plus 100 levels, on multiple of our characters with, trying to bring in the cheesiest of our abilities. We're bringing in freaking ant spurs and thorn magic and all the different spells that we can cast, trying to do Scarlet Rot, every single advantage that we think we can cast against this guy just to make it a smidge easier, just to give us a 20% extra chance of actually getting a win.
The fact that the DLC has a talisman set aside in the Shaman Village, which is the braid, which gives you the most holy damage resistance ever, is a very clear thing of like, this final boss very much is just like, hey, it's time to take all the limiters off. This is your Resident Evil moment of, you've been saving that rocket launcher for the whole fucking game. It is now time to use it.
Oh, absolutely.
So It is time to find every advantage you possibly can for it. It is time to finally actually start using rune arcs, which most of the time you don't really need. You just kind of put them away and put them to the side. It's like, all right, we need every little drop of health that we can manage to survive these things. And another thing of like, hey, all the people who have been playing with basically dodging only haven't been using shields the whole game. Radahn is the boss where it's like, hey, it's time to use a shield.
Oh, absolutely.
It's time to learn when to block, how to block, and what to do.
And that might be anti to how some people play, what their builds are.
If you're playing, especially say, if you put everything you had into, I want to use magic and ranged spells, Radahn is not fun, because Radahn is the anti-magic boss, where he doesn't really give you a ton of chances to cast spells unless you've got other people pulling aggro.
Very true.
To let you cast. Because like phase 1, all of his attacks are up in your face with different slashes of swords and stuff like that. Phase 2, most of his holy attacks have area of effect shadow, like holy effects that will they don't often do a ton of damage. Sometimes they do a lot of damage, but most of the time it's just chip. But it's enough stagger that it cuts you out of cast animations for certain spells.
Yeah.
So Radahn was mainly just built, and I really do think he was very much built, again, much like Bale, built in mind of bring a team. Doesn't matter if you're doing it offline and you're just using Ansbach and your spirit summon, bring a team.
Absolutely. And even tapping into the original fight against Radahn in the main game, the way I played it, it was like Braveheart. Like, we called in every single boy. I was riding Torrent. I was like commanding my troops. It felt like an RTS to me, the way I was playing it. I know other people like to get down and dirty and, you know, have their big shields and their mega swords and dual wield big swords and just like slam that dude and get into like a Sekiro sparring match against this guy. But I was like, no, this dude doesn't take damage from, like, no matter what my build was. I was like, I'm not going to sit here and chip away at this guy and roll around like a little punk. I was like, I need to keep like calling in the summons and riding around, giving my warrior speech, you know, like Mel Gibson, Braveheart. And it was silly to watch, and it was so fun, and it was so funny. But in order to defeat him, it was a real, you know, it was meant to be, that was like a tournament of champions, right? Isn't that what they call it? Something like that.
Yeah, the Radahn Festival.
Yeah, so he literally holds a festival to like invite everybody to try to defeat him. Okay, so let's frame what this final boss fight means, because we do encounter Ansbach throughout the library, and we go back and forth between him and Freya, and then he meets us here, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, you're the one that killed Mog. Like, you killed my master." I thought that was going to result in him wanting to fight us. I thought he'd be like, "You killed my master, prepare to die, like, let's go." But it kind of takes a different turn.
Yeah, I think there is, he has that feeling in his heart that he would like to avenge his master and like honor the memory of the Lord of Blood. What supersedes that is seeing what is going to happen if Mikola wins. If they are allowed to ascend to full godhood and have resurrected Radahn as their consort, so that they could basically work as a full pair of basically rulers of the new world, it would bring about an age that would be just intolerable to live in, and B, very much against what Mog and the Mogwin dynasty was. So he kind of parks that want to defeat you aside, and it's just like, all right, I will not see my master's body misused in this way.
Yeah.
I will help you defeat this thing.
And Ansbach does kind of mention that he's kind of old, he's kind of falling apart. Yep. He's like, I can't really fight you, I can't really fight like Freya, perhaps. Like he would still engage her in battle, and they spoke back and forth about how they would be honored to sort of duel each other, him to be at her blade and her to be against his bow and whatnot. And I thought that was really cool. That was like a sign of mutual respect despite their differences. And so I guess one of the reasons why everybody comes at you in that big NPC battle that we discussed earlier is like, Ansbach is really, he's like, I don't want to see my master defiled. I don't want you guys using his body or his soul as, a puppet so that you can reanimate Radon here and become the god king of the world here. All the other people, which I guess because of the original ending, I kind of thought the Order were like the good guys, maybe? But because they do have the holy magic, they got the, the beautiful armor, it's all very Pope themed, it's like, it feels like holy knights and crusaders, and granted they're not always the good guys in history, but I kind of assumed that they were.
The thing of like overshadowed and twisted by belief.
Yes.
Twisted by belief that Mikola is a righteous and loving God that will bring about a new golden age. And Lade is championing this cause. She has, Dane has seen that, Mikola can help him, feel this peace and oneness with the world and achieve his basically monkly goals. Moore needs something to give him purpose in life, because he has no, he doesn't see an overall purpose for his soul within this universe. He is kind of lost and despondent, and he needs something to hold on to give him hope. And he believes through what he has been told that Mikola will be that hope. So because of all these things, that's what causes everybody to turn, because they are basically, oh, you're going against all that we have done and worked towards. You're going against kindly Mikola. Well, you can't be allowed to continue this. You must be stopped. From their mindset and their belief, they are in the right. They are stopping you, this dark invader that would shatter the world and grind it underneath their heel to become the new Elden Lord. They are seeing you. You are the monster. You are the enemy. You must be defeated. But they are blinded to the reality of things.
And would you say that they probably know that we defeated Radagon of the Golden Order? Well, I mean, they don't really, because they would have acknowledged that immediately if they were like, oh shit.
Absolutely, yeah. But it would have been brought up in dialogue.
But that's kind of why they turn against you at a certain point. They're like, oh, this guy isn't here to help. We kind of assumed he was, and I assumed that their quest was noble, even though I've obviously fought Radagon, and I was like, okay, this is obviously a twisted element of the Golden Order that, maybe all this holy magic I've been using, and I've been, sporting my confessor to be this sort of Golden Order champion, using all their spells and cool stuff for my own means. It's really me just harnessing every tool, even as, you know, the Pope Turtle sort of says, like, hey, we got to learn a little bit of everything, the good and the bad, so that we can harness, you know, it's important to be educated in all things so that, you know when to use certain things and when not to. There's two things I want to touch on here. One is a parallel between what the final boss of the DLC is, where we have Radagon and Mikola sort of combining into one element, right? So we're okay, let me see if I got this right. We're using Mog's soul, right? To put it into
Mog's body,
Radon's
soul.
Okay, I got it backwards. Mog's body's Radon's soul going into this, and Mikola will sort of embody that as well. And so there's something there. But then there's also kind of something similar going on with Godfrey. He's got the lion on his shoulder in the same way that Mikola was on Radon's shoulder, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And he, you know, at first he's just kind of himself. He's like, hey, I'm Godfrey. I'm the first Elden Lord. Let's rock. But then in the second half, he's like, oh, now I'm a warrior. I'm Horalu.
Let me unchain from Sarash holding me back.
Yes.
Let me become who I was initially.
So maybe there's an element when you are the Elden Lord, or you're trying to become whatever the ultimate god form is in this universe, that you kind of do have like your own little spirit animal, which I guess Mikola is going to be this is like the spirit animal of the DLC and boss. Yeah.
There's also a through line back to one of the bosses from Dark 3, which is the twin princes, Lothric and Lorien. Partway through their boss fight, they do exactly the same pose as Radon and Mikola, where Lothric jumps on top of Lorien, and they work together as one, and Lorien is throwing out all these sword attacks, where Lothric is throwing out holy magic, and they work together as one piece. And so it's very interesting to see that return in this element. It's like, oh, okay, we have yet another holy god character that, in terms of actual hand-to-hand fighting ability, maybe not that powerful, but is then bonded with this colossal warrior that is known for being an exceptional fighter.
And the other parallel I want to touch on, are you done with that point, or?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and this is for the main story, this is Radagon. When you approach that boss fight, you see, if I have it right, you're seeing Marika, right? You're seeing her up on her cross, right? Yep. And she breaks free of that cross. But what throws you for a bit of a whirl is, like, you think you're going to fight Marika, in theory, in quotes, right? But then she, like, comes down and then sort of becomes a man, more or less.
Yes.
And you see the golden braid, and you see the hammer, which, you know, I guess creates the Elden Ring. That's like the forger of said. But what's an interesting parallel there is that I guess the reason we see this sort of, not really like a sex change, but there is a theory in alchemy that, like, the highest form of magic, the greatest thing that you can do in all of alchemy, is to become both, for lack of a better term. I don't want to say any words that are like slurs here.
To be able to flow equally between both physical forms.
Yes.
Which is interesting because, say, with your Confessor, you went through the Gold Mask quest line, where part of the way through that is using Law of Regression against that statue in the Holy Capital, and you get the message: Radigan is America. America is Radigan. They are one and the same, and it just completely breaks open this world of they've been the same the whole time. And you tell that to Goldmask, and he just loses all faith. Like, he just gives up. Where it's like, of course, Goldmask doesn't talk, but you just get this audible, like,
he's like, everything I believed is not
true.
And that's like a huge spoiler too, in theory. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's so weird. And I guess that's a really interesting way to do that, is to hide that behind a statue that most people wouldn't pay attention to.
If you don't have that spell at the exact point and do it in the right way. Oh, it just tons of stuff like that.
And Marika, we see her throughout the game with those statues. It sort of lets us know, like, hey, this is a summoning place. It's safe to bring your friends in. There's also we see her statues throughout the game, so we know that she's sort of worshipped as like their god, and she's put up on a cross, and there's all the parallels of Christianity there, and her cross kind of looks like the rune arc that we use, so I mean that's also another sort of parallel there that's being utilized. I don't know, I thought that Marika might be like a good thing. You sort of look at that as you're playing through the game. You're like, oh, Marika, praise Marika. Oh, this is great. Yeah. You see her as a sign of refuge when you see those crosses, and it's an area where you can summon a friend.
Safe spot.
Yeah, it's somewhere. But then you sort of get to the end of the game and you realize, oh, Marika and Radigan are this, bringing about the new golden age, and they're actually something that needs to be defeated, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, it's an exceptional addition to the game, and has added like so much of additional content, multiple like replayable options there within. Because I think the other thing that really gets added with the DLC is that we start getting what I would call capstone weapons and sorceries for every class type. You get stuff that, unless you have been putting a lot of ability points into it, it just doesn't, like, think about, you get through that first boss, you get through Anala, you take her remembrance back to Round Table, and you throw it up. It's like, okay, what do we got available? Oh, we get access to the Twin Moons. What do I need to use Twin Moons? 72 intelligence. It's like, what?
It is insane, yeah. And I mean, even for me, I was like, oh, I'm like 3 points away, you know?
I can get there, but I've been steadily building up intelligence the whole fucking game.
Yeah, but if your build was like a strength build, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Just don't have a chance. And then later on, you get, say, you defeat Bale, and you can cash in Bale's heart to get Bale's 2 spells that are, I think, 50 arcane apiece in terms of what you have to use to cast them. End of the game, you get Mikola's orbital laser that is, I think it is also like 72 faith or something like that.
Yeah, I think
in
that's
terms
right.
of weapons, we see some of like the most powerful colossal weapons. We see the Sword of Starfall's Pass, this sword that lets you light speed dash up to somebody and then crack off a thunderbolt explosion. Like, if you have access to it, you can get Mesmer's Spear that you tap L1, I think it's like 4 times, and it does a 4-hit combo that almost no regular sized humanoid enemy can survive. It's just they gave, and across the boards, every single weapon type got something new, and we got new weapon types that could lead to basically new builds, like the hand-to-hand arts of both the fists and the kick ability, with Palm Blast and then the rolling kicks. You can now play this game like a kung fu game. You don't have to use swords and shields. You can just, I want to use fists.
That's so cool that that's actually viable.
Yep. And really powerful if you put the right points into it, actually.
So would you spec into strength to be more powerful in your kung fu or whatever?
What's interesting is that I'd have to pull it up to see what the scaling is like. I think it's pretty equal. It's one of those things where you can actually kind of do a quality build between strength and dex being at sort of equal values.
Oh, that's fair.
And be okay. But then you can actually further it by adding in an elemental effect. Say, if you want to add frost, you can do strength, strength, dex, intelligence to get the frost, or spec into bleed and do buff your arcane.
That would be nasty, actually.
You can roll that thing into other options. I'd be remiss if I don't talk about Euphoria, the Twin Blade. On initial release, kind of okay. Patched subsequently into one of the most disgusting weapons I have ever used, where the initial strikes of the Twin Blade are pretty good, and then you see those blades start to glow more and more, and First they do 1 rev and then a second. When you hit that second rev, you just target a big thing and it's like, all right, pull L2. Fire the laser cannon out of my hand at this thing.
Oh, yeah. Is that what that gold beam is that you keep doing?
Yes.
That's part of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, dude, that was ridiculous.
That's
so cool.
Yeah.
They did a really good job.
It makes me wonder about, and Miyazaki's been very transparent about this, where it's like Elden Ring 2 will not happen for a long time, or a game of Elden Ring scale and standard will not happen for several years. We are moving towards smaller projects and potentially multiple smaller projects.
That's fair.
Which I think is a very good idea.
Yeah, man.
I don't need an Elden Ring 2. I don't need it for several years, to be honest.
It's very true.
I think this is the time to, like... I still argue that the best games that are in the From Software series are often the first in a series. Mm-hmm. So, Demons, Dark One, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. The games that are number 1 in the new world, new universe, but same sort of feel.
He's very good at
that.
Most
interesting.
Very good at creating a new world that you want to immerse yourself in, and creating that same universe, the same rules of combat or whatever, sort of carry over to all of them.
So I could foresee, like, I have a good, favorable feeling that we'll see a Sekiro 2, because I think that would that's an easy one to do.
Yeah. It's not a big, ambitious, like, massive open world.
No.
Multiplayer. It's very much a solo journey. And they definitely left it open with the true ending for things to carry on and go somewhere else. So I'm excited for that. The other thing he said was, like, this isn't even, we consider it his magnum opus, but he
doesn't consider it his magnum opus.
He's like, this isn't the true adventure game or the true, game I've wanted to build my entire life. Even though it's game of the year, even though it's, critically acclaimed by everybody, even though it's, the culmination of every game he's ever made. He's sort of learned from all the mistakes and the triumphs of his career and the team's career to create this game. He's still like, yeah, Elden Ring's not really good enough for me.
Better.
That would be like Tolkien writing all the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and just being like, I think I got one more in me that's like gonna be better than Lord of the Rings. It's like,
Yeah.
That's pretty ambitious. That's pretty high. That's a tough bar to beat. So yeah, you don't really want to follow up Elden Ring with something so ambitious and something that I imagine Elden Ring, they probably had to pour their hearts and souls into that game. They had to work tooth and nail for years to get this game to come out the way it did, man. And then to do a DLC on top of that, which is just as big as the main game, I would argue. There's so much in there.
It's one of those things where he has also been very transparent about, like, it was in an interview, he was talking about a bunch of other things, but one of the things he said was, well, I am president and sort of leader of From Software. I never want to be in a position where I have to fire people because of revenues not meeting quota or anything like that. He would rather do what Iwata did with the Wii U situation and take a pay cut at the high level so that he could keep his team.
Yeah, that loyalty, man.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in the industry right now.
It's really situational about who is like, yeah, no, we're keeping the team. We got to protect our people.
And that's interesting. They've turned a profit by creating games the way they do, and they sell really well, and Elden Ring sold really well, so we know that. So we know that they're in a profitable state, and they have, as he maintains, he's like, we have a good work-life balance at the studio. We don't crunch, we understand that type of value, and they're not really working on like the Ubisoft model or the EA model where it's like, no, we gotta pump these games out every year. We gotta do soul-crushing amounts of work and crunch, and we have a high turnover rate and all these things. Like, they're the polar opposite of that. Which is really refreshing, really good to see.
Work on it until it's done and release it. They probably still have like timelines and guidelines, and they probably still have hours of working really hard.
Yeah.
But it's not as apparent as other companies where it's just like, no, we're just going to do this because we got to get it out by Christmas or whatever.
Yeah.
Not great, but yeah,
it's ridiculous. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Warhammer if we're pretty satisfied with the Elden Ring.
Yes. So Aaron requested that I, as we transition to talk about Space Marine, that I sort of explain a lore piece that he was requested to understand. Was it just in one of your comments on one of your videos?
Yeah. Someone was like, hey, I really like how you caught on about the armor not having anyone inside, and then they kind of heard you in the background explaining why that is. They were like, oh, you need to ask him how Imperial ships refuel. And I was like, oh boy, that sounds like a podcast topic. It's too perfect to use as a segue. So that's
I've
question.
heard about this in the past, and I went delving to go find the information. One of the things about a lot of auxiliary stuff in 40K of how does this work? How does that work? There usually is information about it, the dependency then becomes when was it written and who was it written by. Because 40K has existed for what are we on now? Probably close to 40 years. I think it was really started in the 80s. Some of the things are quite old. The information about how to refuel large-scale ships, how to refuel warp reactors, comes from some of the first writings of the game when the game was like Warhammer 40K hadn't existed yet. It was just going by the moniker of Rogue Trader, where it was billed more as almost a D&D adventure in a science fiction world of being a rogue trader, going on adventures and doing various things. In those initial books, they buried information about certain things, including how a warp reactor is refueled. They have not added to that information, but what was written seems very much in line with how Warhammer does stuff, that people have kind of been like, it works. Like, there's no need to poke at it too much because it seems within scope of the universe. So, first of all, I'll send you a picture of, there is artwork of roughly how big a warp reactor is.
Ooh, okay.
Because you have to get into scale of, okay, we're moving a ship roughly maybe the size of the Empire State Building through space and with warp travel, tearing a hole in reality into a dimension of hell so that I can go from point A to point B. What do you need to power that thing? Well, you need a plasma fusion reactor that is really fucking big. So the written piece about how warp reactors are recharged goes like this. They work on nuclear fusion reaction, much like how nuclear reactors work in our modern day right now, of combining chemicals so that they create a fusion reaction and release a lot of power. Of course, we're dealing with magnitudes of much larger scale and very particular increments so that we can power in such a way where you're ripping apart reality, that you can open a door here, pass into the realm of the warp, and then open a second door when you need to leave the realm of the warp. So to do this, the established and understood way is that a collection of lower level menial servants and or slaves would basically be given the task of refueling the reactor. They're given rough level clean room suits to keep them roughly intact, and then these big canisters containing the radioactive material that would be brought to the fusion reactor. These containers are roughly the size of coffins that they carry on their backs.
Oh, of course.
And they are sent towards the reactor, and they just basically open the door and say, all right, get in there. The reactor is, I don't know if it's stopped. There's not a whole lot of information about if they can power them down, or if it's this weird dark age of technology thing where we cannot turn this thing off because we do not know how to turn it back on. It's the PS2 thing of, I don't have a memory card, so I have to keep my PS2 on.
Oh my god, yeah. That makes sense.
So we're doing that, but with nuclear reactors.
Yikes.
So the menial servants go in with their materials and head towards the reactor. Every single step, they are taking amounts of radiation that are very quickly killing them. They are given combat stimulants and a whole bunch of stimulants that are actually above most like available. Like these are stimulants that are kept for basically 2 reasons, or maybe 3 reasons. 1, to heal injured Space Marines. 2, to help certain types of assassins complete their tasks. And 3, to keep these people alive long enough so that they can deliver their material cargo to basically the refueling point inside the reactor. So they steadily move their way in, they open up their box, they throw in their materials, and they try and get as far back as they can before they literally melt into nothingness. Tech priests come in, scrape what remains of them off the deck, collect what they can, and it's like, all right, it was refueled this time. We're going to have to do this 2 weeks from now when we have to warp jump.
Oh my god.
So, this is believable in scale because we do see other stuff that is like this. Do you remember we'll talk more about Space Marine 2 soon enough, but we see in one of the Space Marine 2 operations missions, we see a Nova Cannon warhead being prepared.
Yep.
The thing about watching it be prepared and loaded onto rail cars and all like that is there's that one shot of a bunch of servitors moving it along the train tracks, and they are literally, they have long cables, and they are just walking and bringing it along. There's no train that's moving it. They're just like, oh, let the servitors do it.
That's insane to me. I mean, you think it's bad being a prisoner in Darktide. You think it's rough being a tech priest and having to sweep the floors or whatever. You think it's rough dragging a warhead, by its cables. Imagine being the guy that has to drag the power to the reactor.
Go refuel the reactor. You're not coming
That's your
back.
whole life, and you just sacrifice your entire life to power a ship.
Yep.
Insanity.
Your service for the God Emperor so that this ship can get from point A to point B. And pray to God that all that you did when you finally refilled that thing is that the ship didn't like translate into a system and get instantly blown up by chaos, or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how Space Hulks work, Aaron?
No.
Okay. So there's that other game that is you're a bunch of Terminators inside a Space Hulk. What a Space Hulk is that generally when ships warp in from other segments into a system, they usually warp in at particular points so that they don't collide with each other. Because when you're warping in and out of the warp, you don't really have a guidance of where other ships are while you're in the Immaterium. You kind of just, okay, we're going to rip a portal open here, and we're going to rip another one over here. And hopefully nothing's in the way. Space Hulks are where that doesn't happen, and ships warp inside of each other and smash together into what I like to call, and many other people do, they are the dust bunnies of the 40K universe, but they are colossal ships that have just smashed together into this amorphous ball of ships.
Wow.
And these Space Hulks just kind of float around. They sometimes appear in different segments. But they are treasure troves of supplies, information, technology. So they are very valuable when you find them. So many parts of the Imperium are like, oh, let's go. Like the tech priests are always like, go inside there and see if there's an STC. Go look. Go. Of course, they're also the perfect place for gene stealers and Tyranids to breed and cultivate. So, yeah.
God, that's quite a robust answer for how do we fuel the ships? And it just like it balloon like everything in Elden Ring, it just balloons into a million other different things. And how even the simplest thing like who lights the candles on the ships and what have you becomes an even bigger
Where
issue.
that probably is somebody's job, is to just keep all the candles lit. So.
Yo, Shisuke,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Appreciate the donation coming through, the super chat. Thank you.
Ooh.
Appreciate the continued support. Hope you're enjoying the stream. We just talked a little bit about Elden Ring, and now we're sort of transitioning into a conversation about Warhammer. So we got into how ships refuel. Where do we want to go from here? Because I know we have a lot we want to talk about. We want to talk about the Space Marine games 1 and 2, and then we also might dive into a little bit about chapters and things like that.
I think probably the best starting point is a rough recap and feeling of Space Marine 1 from your perspective, Aaron.
Okay. Space Marine 1. Let's see. I mean, sorry, what?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the first game I really enjoyed, and I had played bits of it when it first came out, but I just like never finished it. So sitting down and playing it weeks before Space Marine 2, like it still kind of holds up. Like it has that sauce of like, this is a really good embodiment of what it means to be in the world of Warhammer. And getting to be a Space Marine, and it's this ultimate power trip of, you get to be this hardcore, awesome soldier, but they do give you great odds to fight against, large amounts of orcs, eventually when the big twist in the story happens and there's, chaos demons, and I just completely didn't see that coming. I thought the game was just really just going to be like, all right, we're going to battle orcs, and then, maybe we'll battle the big bad orc at the end of the game, and we'll wrap this up in a nice little bow. We defeated the orcs, and then, Space Marine 2 can be about the Tyranids.
Right.
But the Chaos Demon stuff really threw me for a whirl, and seeing the Chaos Marines, and I forget, what's the name of the the big bad? He's Necro.
Oh, the
Chronomicon,
Chaos,
whatever his name is.
He's decked out in his Terminator armor.
Yeah, I always forget his name, but that and the skill gap got a little ridiculous at the end for that boss fight. All of a sudden, being a big, tough, powerful Space Marine didn't mean a whole lot at that point.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Space Marine 1, it's always the interesting thing of, the orcs have invaded the planet, they're taking control. Oh, can we just get rid of the planet? No, you can't. It's a forge world. It has stuff on it, including it's a Titan factory. We cannot give up that Titan factory.
It's too important to glass the planet.
Right. So we have to keep it around.
Oof.
You go in there, it's like, okay, let's sort out the orc incursion and try and get things back in line. And then problems start to occur where, there's this artifact. It has special power. Okay. What's it do? Well, we can't really explain what it does. It's powerful. Keeps it very nebulous, and there's a lot of stuff about who has who wants it, why do they want it, all these different things. Then Chaos shows up and is like, well, we want that thing. It's like, oh, well, fuck, we gotta get rid of this. And we go through, you take out all that, and you have that. And it's interesting, where immediately when Chaos shows up, there's not only a shift of tone of what's going on, of it's no longer just, oh, we're having a adventure, we're taking out orcs. It's like, there is stuff going on, things are not going well. And there starts to be like dissent and questioning from your squad, especially one fucking asshole in particular, who's constantly on you about, oh, must go with the Codex Astartes. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You fucking prick. Yeah, and then getting to that final encounter of having to manage all your different weapons up against your foe, unfortunately leading to probably one of the lesser parts of Space Marine 1, which is that final boss fight against the Chaos Lord, which is just a quick time event.
Yeah, that's a choice. That was an interesting way to wrap up the game instead of giving us a traditional boss fight, you know?
It was also a very much of the times kind of thing, where I think there were other games that kind of did that stuff of having what they saw as a cinematic fight between your hero and the main antagonist in a straight up brawl between each other, and it's like, oh, because of this we're going to sort of see the power of these two characters without having the player have to make all these different interaction decisions.
Yeah,
I don't technically disagree. Like, I don't technically think that was the best choice, and especially what we would see later ended up being a much better option. Yes, but Space Marine 1 is very important because it sets up, like, A, who Titus is, B, who the, what the artifact is, and that it's a very large source of power and could lead to a lot of different things. Sets up who Leandros is and his importance there within. And kind of sets the stage for, okay, things have kind of gone wrong. Titus is now going to be sent off and no longer allowed to be with the Ultramarines. And then game 2 begins.
Now, that's interesting because what happens at the end is, you know, and spoilers for Space Marine 1, Titus is using this artifact, which is, you know, warp technology or magic or whatever, what have you, to defeat the enemy. And they're like, how were you not corrupted by this? Why are you immune to it? You must be of, you know, chaos. You must be corrupted by this. And Leandros uses that as a moment to dethrone his superior officer, you know, his captain, to seek higher power. I believe it's a little motivated by, you know, his greed of wanting to be, you know, wanting to ascend the ranks here, and he sees an opportunity where it's like, oh, this guy's a heretic. He doesn't, you know, obey the codex in the way that I do. He's not a Bible thumper. So I'm going to use this opportunity to say, well, surely he must be, you know, this and that. And then that's what, you know, kind of leads us into the second game. He gets demoted. He gets cast into the Death Watch, and we go from there.
And it's interesting, much like Space Marine 1, we start out with the same thing of a Xenos force invading a planet. The determining administratum goes, okay, can we just nuke this thing from orbit? No, we can't. There's valuable resources. There's Prometheum to farm there. There's Mechanicus stuff over here. We can't just take them out. We have to send in Marines to deal with the situation. So we are, like, the Death Watch is initially tasked with going in there and dealing with stuff. And very interestingly, that first tutorial mission is you and friends going in to set off a virus bomb. Not to kill the Tyranids, but just to slow them down long enough that the rest of the forces can show up. Which is interesting, from the perspective of basically teaching people, hey, the Tyranids are kind of weird where they can adapt to things that are thrown at them over time, where, say, initial waves of Tyranids might go down pretty easily, but eventually the hive mind will learn and adapt to what is thrown at it. So using a virus bomb basically to delay them is an interesting first option. It's also very interesting from the perspective of people who have been part of 40K for a long time, because immediately when I heard that they were using virus bombs, I go, oh no, because virus bombs have a very long history with 40K, especially a very important event having to do with the Isfon system. They are very dangerous, and they, like, not managed correctly, they are just the death of all living matter on a planet.
So that seems like a good way for them to mitigate the idea of, we can't glass the planet, but we could definitely do this thing that decimates all life, and we can preserve our technology and our research and what have you.
Exactly, because we can... It's a thing of... virus bombs are engineered where they take out living matter from a planet, and the main reason that Tyranids go to a planet and go after stuff is to consume biomass and gain power. They basically go to planets and suck them dry of all the life there, and then just move on to the next planet.
Okay. So very much kind of a nuclear option that we're starting with. So
absolutely.
Can you explain the Death Watch a little bit, and why Titus is part of that, and why he's sacrificed his, what would you call it? His title, or his...
So he sacrificed a couple different things initially, where he sacrificed his rank. He was demoted down from captain. He's captain in the first game. He's lieutenant in this game. In the Death Watch is comprised of Marines from every chapter that usually they completely change their armor to the black and silver of the Death Watch, and oftentimes bear no heraldry on their armor of where they were once from.
Okay.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have, say, like, oh, I was part of the Imperial Fist, so I wear the Imperial Fist emblem on my shoulder plate.
But he chose not to, is the idea.
He chose not to because it was, whether he believed it or was kind of told to believe it, of basically forsaking the Ultramarines, of doing something so incredibly wrong. It's like, all right, I'm no longer an Ultramarine. My service is entirely just to the Imperium and the Death Watch and all that they stand for. So the Death Watch is very much composed of Marines that are designed to take on, they don't necessarily take on suicide missions, but they are like, they're like special forces, I'd call them.
And I think I likened it to almost being like in a prison work camp or something, or like it's almost like community service or something in some ways, like where you're.
It's a bit of like community service, I would say, is that it's
forceful. You're not really willingly there, but you do have to sort of do your duty as a part of the Death Watch. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and Death Watch is usually designed to go against particular efforts. So to read directly from the wiki here, and because the thing is, Titus is actually a further subsect within the Death Watch. He's a Black Shield.
Okay.
Because I think what it is regular Death Watch, they can still have the Erdtree on their shoulders of where they once came from. Black Shields are Astartes who have severed all bonds with their former chapter and purposely obscure their Erdtree. Basically devoting themselves solely to just the Death Watch.
So Titus is so devout and so loyal to, the beliefs, the Emperor, the Ultramarines, and all these things. That he believes that even though he knows he plays by the rules and he's very faithful and devout, he's like, I'm not worthy. I need to take my penance and serve in the Death Watch, and that's why he chooses to strike all knowledge and wipe the record clean, I guess. Okay.
And then Death Watch are technically, they're obviously under the Imperium, but they're also under the Inquisition's order of the Order Xenos, where they are the alien killers. They are designed to take out the Tyranids, take out the Orcs, take out the Eldar, so on and so forth. The Inquisition has multiple different orders. Say you have Xenos is against the aliens, Hereticus is against any heretic factions of Astartes or humans. Malleus is demons, and I feel like there's a fourth one, but I can't remember its name. But Death Watch is specifically designed to counter aliens, so that's why they're kind of the first responders to our Tyranid invasion here.
Okay. Perfect way to introduce, to do the tutorial, and you're not really sure if you're playing as Titus. That's kind of how I felt when I started the game. I was like, I don't really know that this is Titus. Like, I'm just kind of walking around. I might just be a random Marine or something that's just part of the tutorial, and he might die, and then Titus will come in his fancy armor. But
exactly, I was fully expecting Titus to come rescue them, not to be the guy in the armor. But then we see. You manage to activate the virus bomb, fire it out so that you can delay things, but you're cut off, nobody's coming, fighting through stuff. That Carnifex shows up, and you get it down, but it's like, oh, there goes Titus, he's gonna die. But then, miraculously, in the end of time, he gets saved. But he is in such a damaged state that he gets, instead of, they kind of pull the cord and say, all right, he's basically gonna die, make him Primaris. To kind of go into what Primaris are, Primaris are what some people kind of view as super space marines, where they took one of the masters of the Mechanicum, Belisarius Call, that we sort of talked about previously. He's the giant tech priest guy with the huge power axe and pulse cannon and all that. Call developed the Primaris Marine program as basically his main project and a resource to give to Primarch Gilliman of like, hey, I made you super space marines. I took the initial genome and gene seed of the initial space marines and improved upon things, made them like stronger, faster, taller, all these different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Primaris Marines wear slightly different armor compared to older, what are known as firstborn Marines. And are just sort of like, oh, they're seen as the more improved versions. Yes. So we are given this. We are awoken to our world. We meet the chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Skullface Chaplain. Constant. I'm very interested to see if there will end up being a chaplain class added to this to Space Marine 2 as a playable character, as one of the classifications, or something there within. I'm not exactly sure. It's always the question of like, okay, if you add more classes to Space Marine 2, what are their abilities going to be? So we'll have to see about what they do there.
Right.
So
that would be interesting.
Then our adventure begins, where once again, much like the first game, we are repelling a Tyranid invasion and then discovering more things about the system and sector as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like again, it's a thing of Space Marine 2's campaign is very much, hey, let's take all the things and sort of different aspects that we did in the first game, but do it again, do it better, do it with larger scale, more detail about our environments, and also bringing in an element of being able to play it with up to 3 players.
Yeah. Really well done, honestly. Interesting. And as we play through the game, we discover that the chaplain is not who we think he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bit of a curveball, because I didn't really see that coming. Did you?
I unfortunately, I think I had that spoiled for me. I saw that on Twitter of like him taking off his helmet. It's like, fuck. All right. But again, another thing of that does not land unless you have played the first game.
That's very true. You could very easily brush that off as like, oh, this is just some guy that Titus knows. Who cares? Like, he doesn't matter. But it actually is Leandros, and we're like, oh, this guy's been keeping an eye on us the whole time.
Yeah, and of course it's you that would become a chaplain, that would be constantly spouting about like, hey, keep to the path, keep to the codex, don't go too far at a scope. And constantly berating you and your teammates about like staying within the lines and all that. Yeah. And you know what? I gotta say, one of the coolest things about the campaign is much with what we've had, where we're kind of in a weird space right now for released media, where there's a lot of choices made about, okay, what characters do you include in a story, and how can you do a diverse cast without making it feel forced.
Yeah.
And I think Space Marine feels like it's a thing of, we have Titus, we have it's gonna be really sad if I cannot remember their names.
Yeah, I kinda blank sometimes on them, but they're
Let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
Return to the Ultramarines. Yeah, we have Captain Akaran as our commanding officer.
Mm-hmm.
We have... Where in the world is our names here? Oh, that's interesting. Let me see here. Where the heck are their names? God damn it. Please, Marine 2.
Let's see, Brother Chiron and Brother Gadriel. Yeah.
Yeah. Where, again, like, we have, like, I believe the actor, I want to see, the actor who plays Gadriel, he is from... Yeah, where is he from? Yeah. So Arthur Lee, the gentleman who plays both voices and is the facial capture for Gadriel, is originally from his heritage is from South Korea.
Wow.
And then we have Brother Chiron, played by Miles here. Where's Miles initially from? Miles Yenneker. Let's see here. Also another English actor, but again, we're having a racially diverse cast, but it feels realistic because it's not at the forefront. It's just like, oh, they're all Ultramarines. They're from potentially different planets and sectors of the Imperium, but they're all Ultramarines. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not on the nose of it's they're like, we're making sure we check all our different boxes about characters from different races and heritages. It's just like, nope, we're all Ultramarines. They're all here to do their job.
They don't make a big deal of it, and they don't fly any flags or shoehorn it in.
You should do it.
Yeah,
is that
I agree.
Like, just, they, like, this is who they are. They are from this, like, this planet or this sector, and they're here to do their job.
Indeed. You can't really say, like, oh, the game's woke. Look, they included people of other races. It's like, no, it's like, this is just the way it is, man. Like, everyone's called to serve,
they're
and
just Ultramarines.
They're all equal in the eyes of the Emperor, I guess. Or whatever you want to call it.
Just like, the Imperium of Man is made up of many different planets and cultures and stuff. So you are going to see many different kinds of people in the Imperium. There are going to be many different kinds of people that you see. I also got to say, I really like our supporting characters to Titus.
Yeah.
I think Gadriel's a really cool character where he has, like, his couple moments of, like, I don't really agree with what Titus is doing, and kind of he believes that he should be in command, and he's kind of lost command because Titus got stuck onto his squad. But he comes to understand Titus and respect him by the end of the adventure. Chiron's almost more interesting to me, even though there's not as much to him, just by adding the idea of he was a part of things that occurred on Calth.
Hmm.
Because Calth was a real fucking mess during the Horus Heresy.
Oh my god.
Calth was, to very quickly explain Calth, during the Horus Heresy, the heretic legions were basically getting set and ready to head towards Earth so that they could go to Terra, basically in siege the main city, like destroy the Emperor's palace and get to him. But they knew they couldn't do it if the Ultramarines were going to come from behind and swing at them. So they needed to stop that from happening. So they created this gigantic chaos storm, both of demons, magic, and just warp storms that prevented warp travel in and out of the Ultramarines' segment of planets. And that was mainly centered around Calth. So there's an entire book about just the war that happens on Calth.
Wow.
So Chiron has a lot of pent-up, like, rage and vengeance because of that, because there's a belief that had the Ultramarines been able to properly get there, events could have gone differently. The Emperor might be alive if the Ultramarines had been able to arrive in time and help.
Right.
But, like, Chaos was very intentional on, like, we cannot let them help. They are too powerful.
Man.
So, yeah.
And I guess the other interesting thing that happens is that they're both kind of doubting Titus. They're like, oh, we don't really know his background. It's all, it's all classified, all the Death Watch stuff and his previous work in the first game. It's all been stricken from the record, And so they're like, where'd this guy come from? And why is he all of a sudden in charge of us? And why does Akaran speak to him with respect? And, why is the chaplain...
Why does he have 4 service studs in his head?
Yeah, let's get into that, too. What does that mean?
So each of the studs represents numbers of years of service. They scale from sort of a steel color to a silver color and then a black color, representing standard issue is 10, middle range is 50, 25, and then 50 is the gold studs. Titus has 4 gold studs, therefore he has been serving in the Imperium's forces for 200 years.
Oof.
Basically a full 100 of that was as a Death Watch Marine. So to have all of that time just redacted from history is a big thing to be like, you've been, like, out of record for 100 years. What the fuck is going on?
And that's the gap between Space Marine 1 and 2, is that even though in our world it's been like 13 years or something since the first game, for Titus, he's been serving in the Death Watch for that long. That's the gap that he's been dealing with between that and the start of this game. So he only had 2 studs in the first game, and now he has 4. So... holy crap.
Yeah. I'd say on the flip side of things in terms of characters is that the other thing that this game excels with is adding in a really good villain. Imra is a really fun villain.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he is, like, just the most over-the-top evil sorcerer of, like, oh, my mischievous plans will come to fruition, Titans. You can't stop them, but you could join me if you wanted to.
Yeah, man, classic. Gotta love it. He's a real villain. He's doing bad things, and, the way he uses chaos magic to manipulate Titus's mind throughout the campaign. You know, he sends a Titus clone at you at a certain point, and you're like, what is this? And you start shooting it, and you're like, oh, is that one of our boys? That doesn't make sense. Wait, is that me? That's me.
Yeah.
That ain't me. I'm me.
Yeah. And having it be the Thousand Suns Legions and the forces of Zinch this time is pretty cool, because Zinch has never, say with game 1, you were facing the overall Black Legion of Chaos Undivided with some backup from the Red Demons of Khorne.
Okay.
Darktide focuses on Nurgle and like the forces of decay. This is the first time that we've really seen a Zinch focused game, because even say Chaos Gate Demon Hunters is Grey Knights versus the forces of Nurgle. It's like Nurgle and Khorne are the two really easy picks, because it's like, oh, Khorne is blood for the blood god. Like, it is very much Doom level demons. And Nurgle's really easy to do. It's like, oh, it's chaos and decay and zombies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Zinch is this weird other space of, oh, demons of madness and warp bending reality stuff and things just not being quite right, and treachery and deception and trickery and all these different things. So it's the first time we're actually properly seeing them utilized and used.
Ooh. Yeah, that was really cool. Especially in his boss fight when he's warping reality and you're like, you know, you're just seeing the whole world get bendy, and you know, he's also spawning in like fake troops, so like you can be like fighting projections of enemies thinking that you're actually in a fight, and it looks like you're becoming more overwhelmed, and that happens throughout the campaign and even in the operations, which I thought was really cool. That's like a core game mechanic here.
That there's a status effect for insanity that your Marines can have affected them.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the Thousand Suns, because that is one thing in one of our videos that I caught on to really quick was, hey, look at these guys. These are Chaos Marines, okay, but the lights are on, but nobody's home. When you rip them to shreds, there's no blood, there's no body parts, unless you're fighting a sorcerer. But the I guess the regular troops and the Terminators even are, and talk about the Terminators and what they wield and stuff as well. But tell us a little bit about the Thousand Suns and why are they just a suit of armor that just falls to pieces?
So the Thousand Suns are one of the original legions of the Imperium. Their armor used to be pure red. They were red and white, basically. They had a fascination and obsession with understanding more powers of the warp and different psychic abilities. They were chastised for this constantly by the Empire, and the Emperor himself finally put down an edict of, you must stop doing this. They didn't. They went back to Prospero and kept doing it, to the point of basically going too far and doing some horrendous stuff that at the time they thought was for the greater good, but ended up just furthering the... Again, it's the thing about the Chaos God Zinch, is that he's always playing tricks. He's very much the Loki of the universe, of playing tricks and getting people to believe that what they are doing is the correct thing and will help people and is good. But no, you're playing right into his hand, and when he's ready, he will close the hand upon you and you are his. So the reason that the Thousand Suns, Marines, and Terminators are nothing more than dust is that a long time ago, one of their main sorcerers, Ahriman, basically used a very powerful spell so that he and all the sorcerers within the Thousand Suns could gain more power and become exceptional sorcerers. To do this cost the rest of the army, where their natural forms were turned to nothing more than ash inside of their suits of armor, where they are now like just animated constructs of armor. There is sort of a soul that exists inside the armor, but there is no physical body that fills the armor plates. It's mostly just animated construct.
Mm-hmm.
And the Scarab Terminators that we get to see in this game are quite something, because we get to see them wield. They come sort of in two forms. We see them with their Storm Bolters and their Power Swords, which, because Thousand Suns have a very big Egyptian look to them, their Power Swords are actually shaped in the curved Kofesh style. And then we also see Terminators with the giant heavy bolter Gatling cannon. And then they also like to spam rockets from their backpacks at you.
Oof. Yeah.
Makes them
that's another
annoying
move.
to fight.
They are. But it's so cool. I love that Egyptian imagery, and we're seeing the weapons, and we're I think that's really cool to see that kind of mesh in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, shall we talk about the discovery that happens at the end of the campaign when you go down into the ruins of this little Mechanicus project they've been working on for years?
Yeah.
We found a way that we can fight chaos on their own level.
Mm-hmm.
Harnessing technology that you should not fuck with.
Yeah, very clearly. Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out that one of our planets ends up being not only a crypt world for the honored dead of the Imperium, but is also a fucking Necron tomb world.
Oof.
And they have been using Necron technology and Necron pylons with this belief, and it does in fact work, as we see happening, that by inverting the polarities and power that exists in these pylons, they can close and shut out dimensional rifts that Chaos is attempting to use. And good old Luz is like, look, I solved it. We can beat them with this thing.
Yeah.
But that's
the enemy of my enemy is my friend, we can harness their tech in order to destroy it. But I guess that ends up being the plan all along, is that he was being manipulated to
and tricked into continuously reversing polarities and giving Imra the chance that he needed to use the machine, because the thing is, the machine works in both regards, where the machine can shut out portals, but can also help open really big ones.
Which is what the big end game, sort of final encounter against that, what was it, like some sort of a demigod that was coming out, that we saw standing.
Lord of Change.
Yeah.
A greater demon of Zinch.
Yikes. We were about to set that loose.
Oh yeah, and the thing is that being able to see a greater demon of a force come out in a situation where we are on the ground fighting it is such a cool experience of seeing how powerful this thing is and understanding that it hasn't really even manifested truly into reality yet. It's still slowly clawing its way out of the Immaterium. yet it can look at a tank and it just flips it.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Of course, this leads to probably the best scene of the game, which is raise the banner.
Yes.
And hold out. Oh, it's so fucking good.
That was so cool. It was that moment like where the soldiers in Vietnam are all hoisting the American flag, on the top of the hill, and it's become a famous statue, or Washington sailing across the Delaware. Like, that's kind of our moment where it's like we raise the flag and we hold our pistol in the other hand, and we're just fighting off endless hordes, and all the Ultramarines are surrounding us, and Akaran's there, and it's just like, dude, it's all hands on deck, and multiple portals from multiple directions are opening, and the what do you call it? The demons of Siege are coming through, and we're just fighting hordes of them.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the game, we're
almost pointless until
absolutely.
It shows that our message did get through, and Calgar is here.
Yes. Oh, that was so cool. It was so cool to see everyone in chat so excited about Calgar, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, they've been kind of hyping him up a little bit. Throughout the game, they're like, oh, Calgar this, it's like, oh. Yeah. We send, the big thing was to send a message to call Calgar, right? That was that one mission where we got to the tech priest, and we were like, yeah, we need to call in Calgar, and the tech priest ends up being Imran, right?
Yes, the master of astropaths. She's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Especially you, Titus.
Right.
I can see within your soul you should not be here.
Interesting.
And again, it's it's like that trickery thing of you gave the god of Zinch a opening to see where the master of astropaths is, so that he can just go in, pop. All right, you gave me an opening, let me use it. Yeah. And then leading into, again, much like this entire campaign has been of first game but better, I would argue.
Yeah.
Is
absolutely.
The boss fight with both the Lord of Change and then Imra is like, wow, an actual boss fight. That's not a quick time event.
Yeah. I think that was the right move, especially for it being kind of a co-op game, Yeah. It would have been a little underwhelming if we were all just mashing buttons.
There's no way they could have done. Yeah, they would have
quick time.
They had to do something, where you can have potentially 3 players for that final encounter.
Yeah.
Yes. So
very well done.
There is one thing. And it's something that I have talked about and Texas has talked about. Of something they changed. And they changed it after you finish the campaign. So, in the final scene, we see Titus run in. He grabs the little crystal thing that is powering Imra up, allowing him to rip open more dimensional rifts and whatnot, and he snaps it. And the screen goes black. And then it's in, like, the subtitles come up, and it says, Rise, son of Gilliman. And it attributes it to voice. They don't name the character. They patched the game, and they gave that character a name.
Oh.
The name being the Emperor.
Oh, shit.
So what it is saying is that Titus is important enough that the Emperor himself spoke to him in that moment of, I need you, son of Gilliman, one of my basically descendant children, I need you to get up.
Okay.
That he is that important that the Emperor of Mankind spoke to him.
Oof.
Which is quite the change.
Right. Well, there is something special about Titus. Him being resistant to the chaos being resistant to chaos seems to be a big thing. He seems to get this, big second chance of being pulled out of Death Watch. He's obviously got people that are looking out for him, whether that's Leandros being kind of a dickhead, but also, kind of realizing something in Titus. Maybe he sees something in him, and that's why he kind of mentors him throughout this campaign and sort of checks in on him. But he knows that Titus is such a loyal and powerful weapon that it's like, yeah, we need to be utilizing this guy. Otherwise, all is lost, Interesting.
Yeah, and Titus is restored his honor of the rank of captain. He is granted new honors and new dedications, and
it's the new helmet
story with them. They're going off to do more things.
Yeah. Which I think is really cool, because, that leads to the idea that, maybe there could be a campaign expansion someday.
Yep.
Where, maybe Titus is out, obviously if he's splitting off from his team that we were with in Space Marine 2, he's going with the new squad to fight a new threat in a different side of the galaxy, I guess.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We also have the possibility of, hey, we have 200 years of Death Watch adventures to do.
That could be really cool.
You already have the Death Watch armor model made. It's not hard to make that into new missions that could very easily be set up with, him and whatever his new team would be, being like, hey, Titus, have you ever fought the Tau before? Well, yes, I have. Let me tell you a story about that.
Yeah.
Campaign mission.
You could introduce more of the different races and factions that exist in the world. And I guess we were talking about how the Necron could even be a future addition.
It would not be hard for a expansion either to campaign or operations or to both to be, oh shit, the fucking Necrons woke up because we were using their technology and poking at their things. We now must fight them.
That's kind of absolutely what we did. They were hibernating, right, on that corpse world. And now, we've done a lot of silly things, and that has chaotically, you summon a demon. You summon Siege, of all things.
Yep.
That's kind of like knocking on someone's door while they're asleep, and you're ringing the doorbell over and over. They're not gonna not notice. And then also they've already sort of created the models, because as we were walking through, we saw some of the these weird mechanical centipede like designs of these Necrons that were hibernating, and then I guess our tech priests were taking them apart and trying to analyze the technology and how we could utilize it, and they were obviously we're playing with it, and obviously that was under Siege's advice, I guess, in a way. He was manipulating the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if we also look at the roadmap for this game, right? We see that they have a lot of content planned for Space Marine 2. Which is unusual, because this is kind of a traditional game in some ways, where it's got a campaign, it's got co-op, it's got PvP, and they focused pretty well in all areas, but they obviously have a plan for the next year of content. They have 4 seasons. Let's see, in September they had ultra wide support, private PvE lobbies, battle barge, sparring arena, which is over here, and then they added a bunch of ultramarines chapters and paint jobs and all that stuff. And then in 2024 they're saying season 2 will be, or well, I guess the rest of the year, the new PvE missions, that there's going to be a new difficulty, that there's going to be, I'm sorry, this image is a little small, a Neo Volkite pistol, new, and that says plus new enemy. I don't even know what that can mean. And then a Dark Angels champion pack, cosmetic pack, weapon skin pack. Let's pause right there. What does all that mean to you?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll do the Dark Angels part first because I'm perfectly dressed to talk
Yeah, you're
about
adorned in the Dark Angels.
So, the Dark Angels chapter pack will mean adding additional cosmetics to adorn yourself in more Dark Angels, Heraldry, and there within. What it also might mean is giving you additional color options there within, because Dark Angels do have a couple successor chapter variants that have slightly different color configs compared to their standard issue dark green. Say some of the original colors of the Dark Angels was like pure black and red kind of thing. And then say their Terminator division, the Deathwing, is pure like bone white. So we might be seeing those colors come along. And then they're also going to add additional, say, shoulder plates and helmets and stuff like that for that. In terms of new enemies, and I do believe that is going to be something that, especially putting more and more time into operations, as good as operations is, and I think it is very good.
Yeah.
Once you understand what you're up against, you can kind of cleave through stuff very quickly. There's not as much surprise once you understand stuff. Right now, if we look at our two factions, say with Tyranids, your baseline Minoris enemies are your two different little Hormigaunt guys, either with just slashing claws or their little virus rifles. Then you have your Majoris with your knights, either have the bone swords, the whips, or the two different gun variants. One is the sort of venom launcher that spits out the little barbed wire pods, or the charge up sniper. So it's a 4 variant at the Majoris part. So we go from 2 to 4. And then when you get to Terminus, where we have 3, we have the Lictor with our invisible, like, jump on top of you guy.
Yeah.
Fucking pain in the ass still.
Oh, absolutely.
We have the Ravener, who jumps out of the ground and tries to ensnare you. And then we have the Zoanthrope that can come in singular or paired variant. So we have basically our three what I like to call special infected, because Operations feels a lot like Left 4 Dead. Holy shit, it feels like Left 4 Dead.
It sure does.
So you have your 3 special infected, and then you have your 2 boss infected, which are either the Carnifex or the Neurothrope. But it's interesting. So we have 2, 4, 3, 2. That's just on that side. If we look at Thousand Suns, we have Imperial Chaos Guard that come in sort of 2 variants, where it's standard lasgun and sniper lasgun. We have our Goat Demons of Zinch, the Zangors, that come in sword variant and sword and shield variant. And then we get to our Majoris enemies, and we only have 2.
Okay.
We only have the Bolt, the Rubric Marine with the Chaos Bolter, or the Flame Rifle, or the Flamer.
Right.
At Terminus, we really kind of only have maybe about 3, I'll call it, where it's Terminator with Gatling Gun, Terminator with Stormbolter, and Chaos Sorcerer. And then at the highest, the boss monsters, we only have 1. We only have the Hellbrute. Right now, there's kind of a disparity where there are more different kinds of things to encounter when fighting the Nids. There are more special infected that have unique abilities that, like, a Lictor's a problem because if you're surrounded by a horde and one person gets pinned by a Lictor, you basically count them as dead.
Yeah.
Whereas with the other side of things, it's just like, oh, there's a Terminator here. Parry it twice and kill it.
Deal with it.
Like, kind of. But at the same time, because the Tyranids have the synaptic link, where taking out either Majoris or higher ranked Tyranids causes everybody else in the squad to kind of freak out and disparage, they aren't as difficult as fighting the Thousand Suns, where killing a Marine does nothing to the Zangors. They're just like, oh, you killed the Thousand Suns Marine. I'm still going to stab you with my sword. So, new enemies would mean fleshing out the factions so that there's more diversity in what we are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
On the side of the Tyranids, there's a dozen different choices that they can do. There are so many extra enemies that they have access to. Say, one, for example, is putting in a gene stealer that causes, basically it would work like sort of a lower grade Zoanthrope, where it can kind of hive mind out to some of the Hormagaunts and make them fight a little better, but has the mobility and sort of the status of a Lictor, where it's really fast moving and close combat. There's additional range type Tyranids that they could add. There's more that you can flesh out to make that encounter more complicated. On the Thousand Suns side, there's not too many other Marines that they can add.
Right.
There's one that I'd like them to do, which is at, say, the highest level, where we're usually facing a Hellbrute. They can either patch in additional, like, demon engines. So, say the Helldrake is a demon engine, but that's like a spectacle fight. That is we fight that thing in a very particular way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying spawn that in a mission, because that would be insane to fight that thing in regular missions. But there are other demon engines that are the size of Hellbrutes that we could fight. The other thing being, we have, at the Terminus level, we have minor sorcerers. What's a major sorcerer look like? Like, is there additional stuff there that a major sorcerer could do? Where, say, a major sorcerer spawns in, we have to kill him before he opens up a portal and spawns like 4 Terminators.
Wow.
So, I have a feeling that starting off, we're going to get additional Tyranid missions and Thousand Suns missions, and maybe like later next year they'll add maybe Necrons, because they, like, again, put all the stuff and the teasing there, and the easy way to do that is set them underground in the tomb worlds, where we go inside the tombs to go fight them on their own space.
Okay.
You don't really need to do more, like, on top of the planet surface. You already showed us that there's a giant tomb world down there.
Yeah.
Let's go down there.
Ooh, yeah, that would be really interesting. We got a compliment here in chat. Tell your friend I says Dark Angel's veteran looks so cool. So we've had multiple compliments on, like, how decked out your character is, which looks awesome.
So
that's your bulwark.
I've maxed out 2 classes.
Okay.
One of them is Bulwark. And the other is
oh, snap.
My maxed out Tactical.
Oh my god. And what is this guy? What chapter?
So he is pre-heresy Luna Wolves.
Pre-heresy. What does that mean?
So the Luna Wolves are the chapter of Space Marines that was under the command of Horus Lupercal. Horus Lupercal is that same Horus that caused the Horus Heresy that split the Space Marines into Heretic Space Marines and Loyalist Space Marines. His faction of the Luna Wolves would eventually become the Black Legion that you end up fighting in Space Marine 1 of the guys in the pure black armor.
Ah, okay.
But I wanted to try and do the Luna Wolves pre-heresy because tactical benefits from having access to the the Roman Centurion-esque helmet, which is something that the Luna Wolves wore in their, like, all the captains had helmets like these. And as we'll talk about in a bit, the Luna Wolves are really cool, and their books are really well written. Yes, so that's another thing is, like, let's say that this game has some of the best character customization, where every single piece of armor and color is all earnable just by playing the game.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, because other games would probably be like, oh, you want this pauldron? That's $29.99, you know? Like,
or get to this level in the battle pass.
Oh, which expires, by the way, so you gotta play this game like it's your job. And Halo Infinite and, like, Halo Infinite and Suicide Squad might be the only few games where you can select the battle pass you want to use, and yeah, it's permanent. It doesn't expire. You're not trying to keep up with that. Oof.
Yeah.
And you've even done the same with your guns. Like, the guns have to be leveled up as well. So
yes,
we can see that you're a high rank character, not just because you have fancy armor and you've played the game a lot, but you've also invested your skills in leveling up, utilizing these weapons to get them to that particular accolade.
It's something that I've always enjoyed. I initially saw it in, say, like Halo 3, where you see people in the full Hayabusa armor. It's just like, oh, okay, they went through campaign on that difficulty and got all the skulls and that kind of thing. I saw it again. The game I always like it the most from is a game called Absolver.
Yeah, I know Absolver. Oh, yeah.
Absolver doesn't have text chat or voice chat. So the only way you can communicate with each other is through gestures and what you're wearing. So the only way to tell how powerful someone is by looking at their gear and going, okay, where do you get that cloak? Where do you get that helmet? And you could come upon somebody and go, okay, how experienced are you? And you see that, like, that blue Absolver cloak, and you go, okay, you've put some time in. And then they put on a particular mask, and it goes, oh, fuck, they've been playing this game a lot.
I actually want to hit that game up again, because I just did the campaign run. And then later on, they came out with the co-op and stuff, and later updates. And I'm actually keen to check that out.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite games. I like games where you don't have conventional, like, methods of communication with other players, where you don't have text chat, you don't have voice chat, but you can communicate through what you do, what you wear, and how you act.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think it's a really cool aspect of storytelling. But yes, as you said, it's one of those things where playing online for Operations Mode has been really fun, because you'll just meet people decorated in different color configs and stuff. And I always like run over and see, okay, what's on your shoulder? Like what chapter do you have on your shoulder for your Marine? Because I've seen there's a lot of commonality. Like you see a lot of people who are I've seen a lot of Bulwark characters that are decked out in the black and white of Black Templars.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome because Bulwark was basically made for the Black Templars look. I think it fits them so well. Like you have up there, Aaron, where Assault, so many people are playing them as Blood Angels. Like
It's so cool.
it's the chapter to use them on. I've seen, just a whole bunch of different stuff. I've seen, I think when I was playing this morning, I saw a couple people just running sort of black and silver Death Watch, which is pretty cool because you're able to get like all the different components to make your one arm the pure silver of the Death Watch. Just like, and having this game be 6 classes, it benefits to you like, hey, let's every single one, let's have them be a different chapter.
Yeah, I like that. And I do like the idea of having those 4 slots of custom armor sets, and then you can have like 4 sets for your chapter so that you can have like, oh, this is my Blood Angel Assault, but like let's say we're playing one of the Terminid missions and we're doing the highest difficulty. Maybe I want to sport the Death Watch, or what was that other faction? Was it of the Dark Angels where they had the Suicide Squad that you were talking about?
Oh, it's Blood Angels Death Company.
Death Company. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of death this, death that. There's Death Watch, Death Company.
We haven't gotten into the Space Wolves where every single thing has the word wolf in it.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Wolves are so cool, bro.
Wolves are cool, bro. Yeah. No, I'm very happy with the customization that has been made available, and it is one of those things where they chose the right path in terms of future monetization for this game, where additional content to play is going to be free, but if you want additional newer cosmetics, they will be part of the season pass.
I dig it.
Where just baseline wise, you don't need additional cosmetics. The amount of colors and stuff that you have initially is more than enough.
There's a lot.
The additional cosmetics are just there for people who are like, I need this Blood Angel's helmet, I need this Dark Angel's pauldron.
Yeah. Like really care and really want to create like an authentic Marine with all the right
I have seen
parts.
Many people be like recreating models that they have painted themselves for their tabletop.
That's so
where
cool.
It's like, I want that exact.
And there's people that are excited about things coming to the game, like the beak helmet.
Yep.
You know, that's something very authentic to the figures and the lore, and you see them in certain iterations. And we saw statues, I believe, that had the beak helmet.
Yes,
at one point.
Some of the older...
And some of the 30K statues that were in that city.
Mm-hmm.
We did make an Iron Man. Yeah, this Blood Angel, he's basically Iron Man. He's got the red and gold. He's got the jetpack. It brings down the hammer, you know. That's pretty accurate. That's pretty funny. Just a quick segue here. Let's look at what they have in store for 2025. This is just the year one battle plan, as I've said here. So
Yes.
season 3 will be new PvE mission, new PvP game mode, new PvP arenas, a new enemy, PvE prestige ranks, battle barge expansion, which the battle barge is this area that we're at here. So that means they're probably going to open up like new doors or have new areas where, who knows what we'll do. Maybe there's training areas, maybe there's areas to show off your different chapters, or maybe there's faction areas where, this chapter will be set up in this hangar, or, different accolades. Maybe you can display sets of armor, or, have all your, maybe your own, the barracks, how the barracks were in the single player storyline. Maybe we could each have a little barrack, and we could have our armor hanging in there and some of our purification metals, and you could just kind of have a nice little social space, which would be akin to Destiny. The other things they say for season 3: one chapter will receive a champion pack, cosmetic pack, weapon skin pack. Another chapter will receive a champion pack. Season 4 is going to be hype, boys, because horde mode, a new enemy, and a new weapon. One chapter will receive a champion pack, cosmetic pack, weapon skin pack. Another chapter will receive a champion pack. So that's all we know that's coming to the game at this point. But horde mode's going to be massive, and we know that throughout season 2, 3, and 4, we're going to get new enemies. So I kind of wonder what that means. Is that a new faction, or is that like, oh no, it's just a new Tyrannid class could be introduced, or like a new Thousand Suns enemy could be introduced, or like a new boss or something like that? What do you think?
So I think what we're going to see initially is the fleshing out of Tyrannid and Thousand Suns, where we're going to be adding more enemy variety to those classes. We're going to be seeing new Tyrannids get added into the rotations of things that can appear in your missions. We're going to be, and same thing for Thousand Suns. I think potential other factions could be later down the line. I don't think we'll be seeing that for a little while, because that's going to take more development time. In terms of stuff going there.
So they'll be really specific, probably, if they're gonna add the Necron. It'll be on the battle pass, and it'll be like new what would you call it? Xenons?
Faction.
New faction.
New faction.
Cool. Turbo had a question here earlier about, he says, why does, he wants you to explain maybe, why does everyone hate the Black Templars? Why do they get so much hate?
Everybody, it's the thing of, everybody hates the way the Black Templars do their things, but they understand what use they have in the universe. So the Black Templars are a subsection of the Imperial Fists. The thing about the Imperial Fists is they're very by the book. They're very like, oh, we follow the rules. We like build our fortifications, build up our defense. Like, they are the best take and hold Marines, where they'll build up walls and barricades and structures and reinforcements and all that stuff, and we take and hold and we defend. And they're very by the book, level-headed, focused Marines. Black Templars, even though they're technically under the Imperial Fists, are the complete opposite of that, where they're like, fuck it, we ball! And just run in and just constantly screaming and like chanting all these miracles of the Emperor and all this. They are the most, I think they might be the faction that has the most chaplains, where
interesting,
like they are very much imperial creed, imperial truth. but they're lunatics with how voracious they are for battle, in especially close quarters battle. So that's why people are like, would you calm down, please?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe why I've been seeing a lot of Black Templars playing as the Bulwark and also as the heavy as well.
The
I
heavy,
think I've
yes,
seen.
yes.
'Cause those are very like defensive and battle, and the way you describe the way they fight and the way they operate.
Yeah,
It almost seems like a natural fit.
That there's a lot of Bulwark Black Templars is solely because of the head armor that has the hood. There is specifically artwork and characters for Black Templars that has that full robes and like look to them. So yeah, that's why a lot of people who play Bulwark are playing yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They are
Interesting. The heavy as well.
They are the guys.
Yeah. And I think that's what kind of elevates this game to kind of another level. Is it's really fun, and then you play and you start unlocking stuff, but when you get into the chapters portion of the game, like it's a whole new game once you pick a chapter for your character, and it's like it's almost like you're creating a D&D character. You're creating a lore to your character. You're rolling the dice for your stats or whatever, you're choosing this faction, and that means that your history, your background could be this, and you're sort of creating a little bit of a canon for this is where my character comes from, and this is what he's been through, and this is why he has, this skull on his belt or this medal on his shoulder or something like that. You sort of get to really deeply roleplay within the world, and then of course you get to grind for more armor parts to display and create your ultimate marine here. And I think that's when the game, like, once I changed my heavy into a salamander, and once I changed my assault into a blood angel, like the game took on a whole new meaning. And I was ready to grind like another 20 hours of like leveling up this character, because now there's a meaning behind him. There's more to it, and I can't wait to show off, and I can't wait to learn more about each faction and then set up custom armor sets for each chapter as we go. And there's a part of me that wants to learn the lore of each chapter and try to be like loyal to what their armor would look like and what their paint jobs would be, and not to break too much of canon. But there's also a part that's been really fun with this game, is that people have made the Crayola Space Marine where every part's a different color, or people have done the Power Rangers Megazord where every part's a different color, or people have done Optimus Prime where it's got the red, white, and blue kind of armor set. Everyone's having some fun, tongue-in-cheek stuff where they're kind of making some silly stuff, because the game allows you to kind of do whatever you want. But it also I notice when you do start to create a chapter, it does kind of say, hey, these are the heraldry rules, these are the colors of this faction. We've kind of set that up for you ahead of time. And that, as you've said, like, the salamanders use warpstone glow green, as their key color. And then we've seen that Caliban green has been used for the Dark Angels, right? So these are the paints in the actual real life models, and we're seeing it represented in game and in lore. It's just really cool to me. So exciting. It adds a whole new level of passion that gives the game even more legs, more length to be able to continue playing the game. Now, are there any chapters you want to highlight or talk about? I know we could probably make this a 20-hour podcast if we said, well, let's talk about the lore of this one, you know? But if there's some you want to briefly tap into.
You know what? I think I will kind of do that through book recommendations.
Yeah, let's get to that.
A lot of the chapters that I like and play around with are usually based upon having listened to or experienced some of their books. Because initially I chose like the first proper box of Marines that I bought and painted were Blood Angels because my favorite color is red and I like the look of them.
That's so cool.
But then going forwards, it ended up being I went after chapters that I found interesting and were cool to learn about. Say, for example, one of the reasons that I run Black Templars on my Bulwark is not only because do I think Bulwark and Black Templars kind of complement each other in terms of their cosmetics and what they look like, it is also because of reading a book called Hell's Reach, which focuses in on the Black Templars chapter and a particular engagement that they have on the world of Armageddon. So, to go into books here, because I think many people are kind of joining, like coming into Warhammer 40k and wanting to like, oh, there's so many books. Where the fuck do I start?
Indeed.
So my recommendation goes like this. Okay. If you want a good starting book, you should pick up First and Only by Dan Abnett. It is a smaller story about a Imperial Guard segment from the Tanith First and Only Company on a particular Guard adventure war of just one particular galaxy. We follow like our main character of Imbram Gaunt and his ghosts, who are like his best soldiers. We follow their adventures through a particular conflict. We see them grow and get challenged by different things along the way. It's a really nice story that doesn't require any like pre-existing knowledge of 40k. You could jump into this book the first thing ever and get sort of an understanding of what's going on, but with opening up for more. So yeah, First and Only is a great starting point book. After you finish that, I'd say there's about 3 paths that you can go on for books. Okay. One of them are like, hey, I want to read more books about a faction. I want to read more books about, say, the Blood Angels. Or I want to read more books about the Cadian Guard Regiment. I want to read more books about the Necrons, that kind of thing. Another path is going after books about a particular event in history. So this is your Horus Heresy series of books, or your Sabbath Crusade series of books, or the War for Armageddon series of books. The third variant kind of comes in later down the line, which is reading books because of who they are written by. 40k has a lot of different authors who write within it, but you'll kind of start to see, the more you read, you'll kind of start to see more and more names returning. Say, for example, the book that I recommended at the beginning, Dan Abnett. Dan has been around for a long time. Like, he wrote First and Only, I think, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's been a part of Games Workshop's writing team for a long time, and he's written many different books, and is now, I believe, he serves as not only one of their main writers that writes a lot of books, but also sort of the keeper of the overall lore continuity line, where he has command over some decisions. He has other people within the council that make decisions about stuff, but he is one of the people that has kind of, okay, here's what we can basically describe and understand as canon. Here's some changes and choices that we can make within. So I've read quite a few of Dan's books because I really like Dan's writing style, but I've also found many other writers that I like. So furthering on with our multiple paths here, say for example, if you liked First and Only and you want more stuff within that, you can go, oh, let me read more of the First and Only book series. So book 2 in that series is Ghostmaker. Say you like Dan's writing style, but it's just like, the Gaunt's Ghost characters, they're okay, but they're not for me. Well, then you can go read Xenos, the first book of the Eisenhorn series, which Eisenhorn is very much James Bond in the 40k universe. You are following an Inquisitor Eisenhorn, on his adventure to foil a chaos plot from happening, with larger implications of the world and what chaos might do if they gain this source of power. So very much a James Bond story of the bad guy has this super weapon, and we need to stop him, kind of thing. If you're looking for, say, a good Space Marine book, like I said, Hell's Reach by Aaron Dembski Bowden, following a squad of Black Templars as they fight a war on the world of Armageddon. I really like Hell's Reach because it's one of the things that 40k books do really well, at least some of the really good ones, is that while the focus of the plot is usually around our main, usually Space Marine characters, other chapters of the book will be about, let's go look at what the Guard are doing. What's it like to be a human being when you're beside Space Marines? What do they think about this situation?
Yeah, that's a fascinating perspective.
So Hell's Reach switches between the Black Templars squad of soldiers, the Armageddon Steel Legion Marines, and the crew of an Imperator Titan. And just all the different opinions and thoughts about the current situation. It is a really fun experience to do. That book mainly focuses on a war on Armageddon between the Imperium and the Orcs. If you like the Orcs, go read a book called Brutal Cunning. I have not read it yet, but I've heard it's probably one of the best written Orc books ever. The Orcs are a really fun faction because they're allowed to be comedic and stupid in a world of grim, dark, serious space marines. So I've heard very good things about Brutal Cunning. Now, I do want to recommend that at some point down the line, if you like reading 40k books, you go read some Chaos Space Marine books.
Ooh.
However, you got to do it at sort of the right period of time. This is our, as we kind of talked about previously, Aaron, this is our Red Sun Superman situation of Red Sun Superman's a really good comic.
Yes.
It, like, bar none, it's a good story.
It is.
But it becomes better if you read it after reading other Superman stories where you get, here's normal Superman stories about what he's supposed to be. Here's when we twist the things around and go from a different perspective. Chaos Space, like, if you think the Imperium is a dark setting, I share no, like, hesitation in telling you it gets worse when you read it from the perspective of the Chaos Marines, who, like, some of them gleefully enjoy what they do, and some of them go to this with reverence of, yeah, if you don't like tragic stories, Chaos Space Marine books might not be for you, but if you do, they are very good. Now, to properly read Chaos Space Marine books, it is also worth understanding the Horus Heresy and what caused certain Marines to stay on the side of the Imperium and then those to split off and go with Chaos. What causes that? However, you don't need to read all of the Horus Heresy books. There are, I believe, what is our count now for Horus Heresy books? I believe it's 56 books. Let's see. Book. Yes. Horus Heresy books spanning the path of starting in 2006 all the way up to like the last one was written not too long ago. There are 54 books in the series.
Jesus. That's a lot, man.
That's a lot. And here's the thing. There's notoriously you don't even need to like zoom in on this picture. This is theoretically the rough timeline chart that you would use to read these books in order. You will see that this timeline has multiple branching paths.
Dude. It's like I'm looking like at some coding for a video game here with
it
all
looks
the...
like an option, like a coding logic loop of how you solve things.
In my nightmares.
Yeah. So, to that end,
Jesus.
what I would recommend is that you go for, if you really like Horus Heresy, start with book number 1, start with Horus Rising. The entire reason that like you see me decked out in that silver armor is because of Horus Rising. Is because of reading about the Luna Wolves and what Horus Lupercal was like before the fall to heresy and what those initial stages of the Marines were like. Horus Rising is a very good book, also written by Dan Abnett. If you really like it, you can go then to False Gods. I just finished False Gods. It was really good. I'm honestly kind of torn between if I like it more than Horus Rising or not. And then probably next week I'm going to start Galaxy in Flames, which is the 3rd book. It's very much like the first 3 books you're watching things fall apart. You're watching like events unfold that because of future knowledge things are going to go wrong, but you see these moments of fuck, it could have been different if this character had like made a different choice here or done these things or different choices along the way. It's like, it could have been different, but no. It's very interesting to read. So doing Horus Rising for start. If you like it, go to False Gods. If you like it, go to Galaxy in Flames. From there, you can kind of jump around and do what you want. I would like to highlight the first Heretic written by Aaron Dembski Bowden, my
Okay.
actual true favorite author for 40K. Bowden is very good at writing villains that you sympathize with. Writing stories that allow you to understand why did something like this happen? What drives somebody to do what we would later see as horrific atrocities? What drives somebody to do these horrible things? And so, well, it's not as simple as they've been a bad person since the beginning. It's this slow buildup of corruption and domino effect of failures and challenges and different things falling along the way. The first Heretic makes me feel bad for a legion, for the Wordbearers Legion, that at time of speaking is known as the most tenacious, annoying chaos faction. But reading the first Heretic, you feel bad for them. It's like they didn't want this to happen. They never chose to be part of this. And to sort of cap that off, if you do enjoy Chaos Space Marine books and you like the melancholy there within, the Night Lords trilogy, also written by Aaron Dembski Bowden, starting with the first book, Soul Hunter, is the Night Lords trilogy is the best set of 40K books I've ever been in. This armor set that you see me in now with the sort of dark blue with the red gauntlets, the heraldry on my shoulder of the skull with the two red bat wings, that is the Night Lords.
Okay.
The Night Lords are the most, and I've been kind of exaggerating a lot of different Chaos Legions and stuff like that, of like being bad guys. The Night Lords are the worst.
Oh, no.
Like, Death Guard are one thing with the Plagues of Nurgle and all that. The World Eaters are one thing with the Blood for the Blood God, Skulls for the Skull Throne of Khorne. The Night Lords were never good people. Even when they were loyalist, they were horrific monsters. There is a picture that is one of my favorite descriptors of it is the Salamanders and the Night Lords. The Salamanders, they help blind children. They help blind children.
Yeah, I like them. They're good guys.
The Night Lords, they help blind children. And that might be the tamest thing they do, is blind children. Because they do some horrible things. They are notorious for having human flesh cleansed and then made into like cloaks and adornments for their armors. They are horrible. But the Night Lords trilogy makes you sympathize for them and makes you go, shit, they got dealt a shit hand. So yeah, start with First and Only, and then from there kind of pick and choose what you're interested in, whether it be I want to read more Space Marine books or I want to read about this event, and go down the line from there. You can never go wrong with nearly any book written by Dan Abnett or Aaron Dembski Bowden. They are exceptionally good writers. And there are many other good writers as well. But yeah, take your starting point of first and only, and then just go from there of like, oh, I want to read this, I want to read that. And you can just keep going. And these are like legitimately reading or listening to these books gives you an appreciation for like good writing and good descriptive writing. And it's something that I think doesn't get praised enough for 40K's books is the way that you can describe certain feelings, textures, way things look, of using additional adjectives, and just the respect of literary construction that some 40K books have is really exceptional.
I can't wait to tap into that. And we have links to all of ActingRelic's book recommendations in the description down below. Check those out. And those are all Amazon links to like Audible, right? To like the audiobook versions, so that, you know, if you're driving or you're at work or something, want to put on a podcast or something, you know, you could obviously just pop that in and listen to some of these Warhammer audiobooks, make it a little easier, maybe a little more palatable to get into it if you don't have the time to just sit there with a book. And also the accessibility of some of these books in physical form might be a little difficult.
It's a pain in the ass to get some of these books, especially because some of them are like, some of the older Horus Heresy books were written in the early 2000s, so getting copies of them is difficult unless you want to order direct from certain websites. Audible makes that a lot easier because you just, oh, I have it on my phone, I'm going to play. Like, I'm in a position where I have almost an hour-long train commute to work every day. A 12-hour book evaporates that commute.
Wow. Pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man. Trying to think if there was anything else I was asked to bring up in this instance. I don't know. I'm just really excited, man. This game has a whole lot to it, and I think a lot of people are buying it and checking it out, and I'm seeing a lot of chatter online of like, wow, this game's really good, the campaign's really good. And a lot of people kind of likening it to an Xbox 360 game, but not in an insulting way, not really saying like, oh, it's because of the graphics, or oh, it's because of dated gameplay. It's like, no, this harkens back to an era when games were complete when you bought them, and they were relatively bug-free, like relatively, you know, within reason, and you didn't have to rely on a lot of updates or a lot of post-launch optimizations, or oh, we forgot to add this, or oh, you know, we'll fix that in post, you know, type of stuff that we see from a lot of other game studios and a lot of the more deceptive practices. And I think we also saw that comment, and I never saw if it was actually clarified, but it was like someone high up at Saber Interactive had commented on a YouTube video and said like, you know, hey, we're not trying to like push agendas with our game. We're not trying to, you know, overly monetize the game. You know, we just set out with what Wukong tried to do, with what this game tried to do. We just want to make a good game. Like, we're not really trying to do all these other things that other studios are trying to do, where they're pushing political or social agendas, or, you know, that they're more worried about that than they are about making a good game, or like the quality of the game or the design of the game. They're just trying to be loyal to the universe, make a really good game that people are actually going to want to play. So yeah, I never heard if that was like fully confirmed, but we had seen that comment and it was rather interesting.
Yeah. And just like, yeah, focus on make a good game that has enough content to be satisfied with and have it be a complete finished product that certainly I want more of, but at the same time I'm like, if we get like just maybe some pieces more, that's okay. This is like good enough on its own where I don't need it to be a live service of constant new content. There was enough that you gave me that I feel satisfied with.
Man.
I will one last thing before we go here. I will put as a recommendation to anyone who has been playing this game a lot and has kind of like, I'm pretty happy with it, but like I'm kind of running out of things to do or things are starting to feel stale.
Right.
Recommendation, because I started doing it today just for how it feels. Go into your interface and start toggling your HUD off.
Oh no.
And play without your HUD and your direction, like say the indicator that tells you where to go next.
Oh snap.
And rely solely upon your knowledge of the level and all these other things. Like right now, I'm playing with just my health bar available to me. So I have to remember where I need to go next. Like how many enemies are on the map. I can sort of judge by both looking at what's around me and also the sound cues for when waves or exterminus class enemies spawn in. Playing without ammo count for your gun can be kind of tricky for certain classifications, I'd imagine. But for tactical, it hasn't been that bad. Now, I'm saying this, do this on like average or minimal. You don't have to do this for purple or yellow class difficulty. Like play this on a lower difficulty and just experience it without all the flashing indicators of where to go and what to do. Just turn all that off and just focus on playing you and seeing how much of this game do you like innately understand by playing these missions a dozen times.
Yeah, because if you've leveled up a class or two, you probably understand the ins and outs
like 10 times. You know where to go.
And you might have played it on the higher difficulties so that you can master all your weapons and, you know, get the most XP. And some of those missions kind of have objectives that might branch out in different directions, and I think that's where the chaos of getting rid of that quest marker could introduce some interesting. I think that'll be really fun. I think we'll get, you know, I'll get to a point there as well where I actually think that's a really that's a really alluring thing to me. So I for one can't wait till we can crank up the difficulty all the way and go in with, you know, the three of us, you know, fully maxed out, doing our best, and see if we can get some of those wins in there. I will say another game that I think of when turning off the interface was GTA 4.
Yep.
And dude, Grand Theft Auto changes when you turn off everything, because in that game, especially GTA 4, like all the streets have names, you know, the characters tell you in the cutscenes and the dialogue while you're driving there. They'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to this bank that's on, you know, such and such street, this part of town, like, you know, pull into this alley. Like, you rely more on like the context clues and of learning the city and learning the landmarks. And that's why games like Elden Ring don't need a mini-map. It's why most games don't need a mini-map, and we're actually seeing a lot of games pivot away from having mini-maps or even maps at all. Like Wukong doesn't have maps at all. Like, there's nothing. They just say, hey, it's a linear game, explore the world. It's got some open hub world areas. You know, it's not super linear all the time, but it's like, yeah, look around and look for bosses, look for, special items you can use to access secret areas and things like that. Revisit areas later on once you've, defeated certain bosses or what have you, in that kind of typical Soulsy way of doing things. It really adds a lot. So I would say, even if you're looking forward to playing GTA 5 or GTA 6, turning off the HUD is a whole new experience because you don't know where the enemies are coming. You're not looking at red dots on the radar. You all of a sudden immerse yourself in the world and you become part of it. And I think that's the best way at a certain point. Once you're familiar with the game's elements and controls, it's really fun to kind of turn that HUD off and just you almost forget that it's a game at that point because you don't have the HUD anymore. Cool.
It also makes for really good screenshots.
Yeah, that too. That's also good. Yeah. And I love my screenshots, man. I love the camera, all the photography modes in video games and stuff. It adds a lot. Well, anything else you have before we wrap up?
No, I think that's a good place to close.
Man. That's super awesome. Well, one thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to wait until I had gotten through all of the Elden Ring DLC and played all the Space Marine stuff and all the operations. Hunter, thank you for following over there on Twitch. Appreciate you. We've been live on YouTube Shorts feed, and Twitch today for this live episode of the podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. And after I do the live show, I usually go and upload it right away so that, there's not a long wait between that. But yeah, we want to thank you all for your support of the show, sending in super chats and donations. I want to thank all the followers and subscribers that have come in today and on the channel. Your support is what keeps the podcast and the channel and everything else going. I want to thank ActingRelic for jumping in. We've really enjoyed having him for all the Elden Ring stuff. We've played some horror games together, and then recently we've been diving in pretty deep to a lot of the Warhammer stuff, and it was really cool, especially when we were running the campaign, to have you chiming in on the little details in the lore and really not missing out on things. I thought that was just super cool, and I think people really enjoyed that. And even as we got into the ops, we started really talking about things that we're seeing during the missions and things we'd like to see, like 3-player squads and having potentially 2 squads team up for like a raid and have, us split up like you do in the campaign in the ops mode. It's like Titus's squad goes this way, the ops squad goes this way. It'd be really cool to have like a 6-player raid where we split up, we do different objectives. Those objectives would lead us to the next arena, which would be a boss fight or something much akin to a Destiny raid. I think that'd be really cool. Kind of a lofty goal for a game like this, but some of the
6v6 is the standard number for PvP, so the technology's already there.
The DNA is there, man, and they've set it up via the campaign and ops that you could have kind of multiple things going on at once, and it would be really cool to see all that culminate in some operations that require. Imagine what a mission would be that would require 6 Marines to come in there. It would be quite the alien threat. It could be multiple bosses. It could be, it could be fighting a Hellbrute and a Carnifex at the same time, and splitting the team between both threats and having a Bulwark there to provide healing, and rally at that point. Just all of the tactical considerations that you could add to the game, and all the special raid gear that you could in turn reward the player with
equipment for
and it's all cosmetic, by the way. It's not even like it's not like you get an advantage.
It's just a commemorative thing of, hey, you did this.
Yeah, and then when other players see you, they'll be like, oh my god, how'd you get that helmet, or where'd you get that purification medal. Well, that's from the raid. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
I did that because I defeated this guy. You know, it's pretty cool. Well, that's really all I have. But that was just kind of the coolest theory I think that we've had in some of our little discussions. We kind of bounce around different ideas of what we'd like to see in the game. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, once again, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. Thank ActingRelic. Where can they find you, man?
Primarily doing stuff on Twitch. Find me at ActingRelic on Twitch, and then occasionally uploading further stuff to YouTube there. Not sure what we're going to do next in terms of release content, but probably something in particular.
Yeah,
we'll see what we do.
Cool. And I have all his links in the description down below. You can check that out. Definitely give him a follow on all those platforms. One other thing I'd like to kind of float and tease is that obviously we'll probably continue with some Warhammer stuff. And I had a really good time when we were allowing subscribers to join in and just help out with different ops. And we were leveling up people of all sorts of levels. You know, some people were maxed out and wanted to help us. And at other times it was, you know, oh, hey, this guy's a level 11. Why don't we all switch to our lower characters and start leveling together, and let's guide them through their experience and allow them to level up. So I enjoy that. I think that's been really fun. We'll obviously have some times where all three of us guys can get on as well and do that. But I think now that Elden Ring's kind of wrapped, we might occasionally revisit, of course, because it's always fun to help other people and to start up new characters or try out new builds and new weapons. I do want to get back into Demon Souls on the PS5. I want to make that the next Souls playthrough.
Souls game to do, yeah.
And I've done part of it, and I have a knight character kind of already built up. And I'd probably just pick up where he's at. And if you want to join for some commentary on that or what have you,
sure.
We could do that. Let's start there. Because I think doing that remake will kind of get me set up to, you know, complete Demon Souls and then step into Dark 1 if that's what would be best. Because I do want to kind of run some of the Dark Souls games that I haven't played before.
Right.
And maybe Dark 1 would be logical.
From Demons to Dark 1, yeah.
And then do Dark 2 because I'm like really excited for that. I hear a lot of people beat up on that game. It's the redheaded stepchild of the series. It's the B team.
Most divisive game ever, where people who really don't like Dark 2 really don't like Dark 2, and Dark 2 supporters are like, nope, it's good.
They love it.
Yes,
yeah,
it's got some faults,
there's no middle ground.
There's certain aspects about it that no other game has done like it.
Yeah. And so that has me excited because I see that you enjoy it. I've seen that other people online have enjoyed it. And so it's, I just kind of I wonder how I'm going to feel about it, stepping into it. And I was always curious about that. And then maybe just logically, maybe a second playthrough of Dark 3, which I originally did on Xbox One, but I would probably pick all these up on PC so that we could all kind of, you know, team up at various points.
Did you ever do the DLC for Dark 3?
I never did the DLC, so that would be new and exciting to tap into as well. And then maybe Bloodborne after that? Like, I never actually finished Bloodborne.
Maybe just in time for us to finally get either PS5 or PC release of Bloodborne.
Maybe if we do that, that'll get PlayStation to realize... Because Miyazaki did acknowledge. He was like, I'd like to do that, but it's in their hands. You know, it's not in my hands.
It's all Sony's.
Which is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of exciting potential ideas that we have there. But I think that's the next logical thing that we should focus on. And we've kind of tried to delegate a certain amount of time to hopping on Elden Ring. And I think we'll probably help TX get through his playthrough, so we'll probably keep that up for a good while. But I think we ought to try to find a day where we can get into some Demon Souls and revitalize the playthrough. Because I was really enjoying that when I first got the PS5. That and Miles Morales were the 2 games I picked up, and I was like, this is it. Like, this is why you buy a PS5. Like, this was the system seller for me. So I want to tap into that. I want to finish it because I was really enjoying it. So once again, thank you all for watching. Take care. Be safe. Have a good one. We'll see you on the next one. This has been Shackcast 64. Take care. Be safe. Andrew, give us a farewell from your end.
Yeah. Glory to the Empire.
See you next time, gamers.